everybody? Pop culture curator here, back with another Gilligan's Island Wednesday. I know we missed last week, but today we're going to get caught up. We're going to pick up where we left off from last time. We are on season 2, episode 17 and 18. Please forget the dogs. Hush up, coach. We are on episode 17 and 18. Episode 17 is titled You've Been Disconnected, and it was originally broadcast on January 13th of 1966. And first of all, I'd like to welcome my co-panelist, Gorilla's Random Thoughts. How are you doing, Gorilla?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm done taking my medication, so
Definitely always a good thing.
that way I can drink on Saturday because I'm gonna need it on Saturday.
Benadryl, isn't it? Isn't there caffeine in Benadryl?
No, Benadryl's a depressant. If you mix that with
No,
alcohol,
I thought it was
it's an
antihistamine.
It's an antihistamine, but the stuff they use in it, and I'm not giving no medical advice or whatever the disclaimer I have to put in for it, but that diphenhydramine, if you mix that with alcohol, you're going to have a hell of 3 hours, and if you're lucky, you'll end up in a coma. Otherwise, if you're not found in time, you're dead.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not worth the risk.
Yeah,
I noticed a lot of the over-counter medications, they seem to have caffeine, and I don't like because they make me feel like crap. So I usually
I don't think there's caffeine in inactive ingredients. Cannabula wax, chromosome, some sodium, some red dye, aluminum late, diabetic calcium phosphate type good, magnesium, stealth, whatever, microcrystalline cellulose.
Sounds like a bunch of chemicals. Yeah, it sounds like a chemical lab.
Yeah, I don't see anything about caffeine.
That's good because I'm not a coffee drinker. So when I take a pill and it has caffeine in it, it really I don't like the feeling of being wired.
Oh,
I drink 5 cups of coffee.
My caffeine, I'm immune to caffeine by now, as much soda as I drink and Monster. But welcome, Scurvy. Welcome.
Hello, Lemon Pie. How are you doing? So glad you could be here today, today, depending on where you're at.
He's a Texas lad there, so same time zone as me.
Yeah, I need to make sure to drop a link too. In fact, I'm going to do that now.
Yeah.
Bear with me, guys, here. So tonight we're going to be covering the episode where we get a telephone line washed up on the Castaways Island.
Oh, they are. I don't know. I think I've seen that one at least 20 times.
Yeah, it's not bad. I thought it was pretty funny. I hadn't seen it in years, so it was good to get caught up on it again. Let me get to it. What I'm doing is it's like a GoFundMe. It's Give, Send, Go. It's the same website that I used a couple months ago when I raised money to move to Arizona. And this is for Suzanne Eckstein. She comes and visits the chat. She's one of our regulars. In fact, she was here last night. So I'm going to post this link. If anyone can help her, please do so.
Okay. And hey, Nemesis, he says, hey, Pop, Gorilla, Scurvy. Hope you guys are doing well today. Yes, I am. I'm doing, even though my shoulders hurt from ripping rags for the last 3 hours of work today.
Ripping rags?
Yeah, because we get these terry cloths from Uline there, and we cut them in half to so that they fit on our drills better and stuff, and then that way we're not burning through them as fast.
Okay, gotcha. And hello, Nemesis of Eden. Let me post this. I'm going to pin this to the top. Yeah, our good friend Suzanne Eckstein. I'm sure you guys have seen her in the chat. She was last night. She was talking about she's a grandmother that's raising a teenager. and it looks like she might need some help. So if you guys are able to, please visit her Give Send Go and help with what you can. I'm going to try to. I don't have an income, but I'm going to try to do the best that I can. So, like, at least I figure at a minimum, help promote and spread the word. And I'm going to see maybe if Jill can help as well.
Oh,
Yes.
I'll see what I can do next week there.
Yeah, I hate to see anybody in distress, especially financially. And I feel terrible because, as you guys know, I'm not working right now. I wish I had more options.
Yeah, and I'll keep that in mind. I'll get it posted to my channels there. We'll get something going for her.
I appreciate that. Maybe we could try to do a fundraiser stream like you guys did for me.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe we can get something going.
Excuse me.
Maybe we'll do a fundraiser instead of Babylon 5 on Saturday or something.
Or both.
And Scurvy says, "Yo, Nemesis," and here is the link for on the screen here for Suzanne's Gifts and Goes.
Yes, and Nemesis, yes, good to see you, Nemesis. I'm doing good, thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, and we got a new person, Peter, not Finity.
Peter, not Finity. Good to see you. Hail, sir.
Yeah.
Well, what a long day. It's good to finally settle in and relax for this.
Yeah, and PvP says, "Hi guys, just finished work. Probably won't be on long as I have to run out into the supermarket and other stuff I should finally work on." Hey PvP, before you go, I got a question. Was Saturday at your Pacific time, so it'd be 10 a.m. your time. Would that work to do the cringe stock on Saturday? And Peter Notfinity says, "Eggnog run." And PvP says, "Not until October when it hits the store shelves."
Yeah, you need to find a year-round eggnog store. Or make it homemade, I guess.
And PvP says they'll grill and recover from wasp attack. Yeah, until they tell me to go take the garbage out tomorrow.
Well, did they take care of it?
I don't know if they took care of it or not.
Well, they should have by now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll guarantee you, if you went out there and dumped that trash and got stung again, then you definitely have a lawsuit, without a doubt. You could buy that company. So I'm sure they're smarter than that. I'm sure they got it taken care of the same day or the next day.
Yeah. And welcome, Phantom Boomer. How's it going?
Hey, Phantom Boomer, good to see you. And thank you for letting me know about Suzanne, Phantom Boomer. I posted the link in the chat. So we're going to start spreading the word and see if we can help out Suzanne.
Yeah. And PvP says here, maybe, but can't promise, girl. Might have better idea by Friday night. Okay, sounds good. And Life's and Scurvy says, shelf stable eggnog.
Ugh, that doesn't sound very appetizing. It's got to be cold. That's something that's got to be cold.
And Boomer here says, wonderful.
All right. Yeah, it's too bad. I hate to see anybody in trouble like that. It needs help. And like I was telling Gorilla a moment ago, I'm going to see what I can do. I'll do my best. I don't have an income currently, but I'll at least at a minimum do my best to try to help spread the word. I'll post it on Twitter too today while we're at it. Okay, and and whoever was here for my rumblings from the live stream last night, I appreciate it. I know it was kind of like a little roller coaster of emotions, but it ended on a good note, and it ran rather long. I guess probably 4 or 5 hours or so. I don't remember, but I just wanted to thank you all for being here. For those that were here, thank you. It went well, and I had a good time. But next Tuesday we will be picking up with a horror or sci-fi movie. Okay, so today, excuse me, I'm clearing my throat here. Like I said, we're going to start off with Gilligan's Island Season 2, Episode 17, which premiered January 13th, 1966, and it's titled, You've Been Disconnected. And the description goes, a telephone cable washes up on the island after a bad storm. The castaways try to use it to call home for help. And you guys will see a cameo in here by, well, for at least as old people, there's somebody you might recognize from another popular TV series at the time. All right, here we go. Let me share the screen here. If I can do this right without messing it up again. All right, now remember, everybody, I know you guys have heard this before, but in case there's anybody new, I'm not able to show video without getting a copyright strike from CBS, so I have to show slides. So unfortunately, there's a lot of jokes. The show is packed with them, and I'm unable to catch every joke inside the slides because I have to skip like every 5 seconds or so. So I highly recommend that you watch this on your own. If you haven't seen it before, then you definitely need to give it a try. It's a fantastic show. It's an excellent example of classic TV. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, I recommend you watching it again. You need to get caught up. I watched this episode today for the first time in many years, and I enjoyed myself. It's funny. It's still funny after all these years. It's like no matter how old I get, I can still always look back, watch these, and laugh. And if you're watching this on the rerun, maybe consider hitting the like button and the subscribe if you haven't already subbed to my channel. There we go. Our intrepid crew on their 3-hour cruise. And believe me, I wish I could play the opening theme, which is so famous and iconic. But unfortunately, like I said, we can't afford to get a warning from CBS. So we have a storm on the island, a heavy storm with winds. And it looks like a lot of trees are downed.
And then notice that they didn't mention that they had to take shelter at all.
I know, exactly, right? Well, I guess we're supposed to assume that I guess their huts are relatively safe now at this point. But of course, heavy storms will affect them later on within the series and the movies. That's one of the major things that gets them off the island originally. And of course, directed by and produced by Jack Arnold, the great classic director from Universal. And now is where they're noticing all the damage in the trees down. And they're talking about how the storm was a big one. And Skipper is telling Gilligan to go and find some turtle eggs. Because of the storm, they should be easier to find, I guess. So then I guess the storm would uncover them.
Wait, I got a question here. So it's obviously used turtle eggs for part of the mixture because they make cakes and all that. So what would they make the flour out of? Coconuts?
There is coconut flour, coconut milk.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, because I doubt they have wheat.
Yeah.
Obviously. So here's Gilligan looking. Pooches, please. Here's Gilligan searching for turtle eggs. When he, as you can see, he happens to stumble across this big cable. And he thinks it's a snake at first. And he starts hitting it with a stick. And then he realizes it's not.
Yeah. Now, I got a question. Are those cables really that loose underneath the seafloor?
I've seen videos where they lay them, and they don't anchor them down from what I've seen. So I think it is possible.
I thought they might be a little bit more tension on that. That's what I was going. But that's an awfully powerful storm for it to bring the cable around the bed and through the lagoon and up onto the shore.
Yeah, I know it. But I know they did the same thing with internet. I've watched videos where they have these huge boats with these big long rolls, and they just go along and they roll the entire cable. I mean, it's hard to imagine, but yeah, they actually have cables that run from country to country. When you think about it, that's a lot of money there.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's catch up on chat real quick.
Thank you.
Let's see. Nemesis says, "LOL, PvP is an eggnog god." And PvP says, "Jill does her Voyager watch party at that time Saturday morning, Gorilla." Okay, we'll figure something out. Nemesis says, "Hail PvP, hail Phantom." PvP says, "LOL, Nemesis better be an eggnog god than to rule in hell."
That's true, and I agree.
And Boomer says, "Scurvy, PvP, Nemesis of Eden." And PvP says, "Hi, Phantom." And Nemesis says, "Make sure you subscribe to Pop. He's a gentleman and a scholar."
Thank you.
Yeah. Scurvy's here says, "Hi, Phantom." Nemesis here says, "Same for that gorilla guy too." Yeah, he's just some dumb gorilla.
Yeah, definitely check out Gorilla's Random Thoughts channel. There's a link down below in the description, guys.
Yeah.
Also, you'll see links popping up in the chat through
Oh, yeah.
Stream Elements, and pay attention to those. There's some wonderful channels I like to promote.
Oh, if I was thinking, I made a short after I got nailed on my way home today.
Nailed on your way home? What do you mean?
I got pulled over about 2 blocks from home. They're having my music
Oh,
loud. Loud.
music.
Yeah, the cop had nothing better to do. He stopped. He goes, I pulled you over. I was like,
Yeah, because he was bored. That's why.
yeah. I was like, oh, I'm guessing the music was too loud. He's like, yeah, but it goes. I looked at him straight out and go, but ain't it a bigger crime to play fat bottom girls at anything less than maximum? He goes, yeah, it is. But some of these older folks don't know good music, so can you just keep it down?
Jeez.
So, yeah, it's just keep the music down because I live
It sounds like
much.
he was. It sounds like he was bored. I'm from California, where you're hearing gangster rap, shaking the cars because it's so loud, and the cops don't do anything about it.
Yeah, well, this is one of those. It's a retirement community. We keep the peace, is what it is, pretty much.
Well, not only that though, but anybody who knows anybody that's retired, all they do is bitch and moan and complain because they have no lives.
Yeah. Oh well.
I know.
I understand. I don't like it when they blare their music going down the road either. I'm getting at that age where it pisses me off. But come on, it's Queen. But
Does it bother you when what about like when a Harley pulls up next to you and they go brum 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 brum? What about that? That's worse.
I don't. My neighbors drive Harleys and they have their friends over.
That's what I'm saying. Why doesn't that bother you if music does? That's what I've always wondered.
Yeah, it's more like when you just hear the thump 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 thump.
No, that's fine. But what they do is when they stop at the light, they intentionally brum brum brum, and they do it on purpose.
Oh, we don't have that problem. We don't have that problem.
Okay, gotcha.
We don't even have a stoplight in my town.
That definitely sounds like a nice, quiet town.
Yeah, Nemesis says tonight they dine on turtle egg soup. Now I'm guessing coconut cakes. And PvP says coconut cakes. Or they can just have a good old sunny side up.
And you can have coconut oil. You can fry the eggs.
Yeah, PvP says, by the way, Pops, I rewatched Alien last night because of you.
Oh, very cool.
And PvP says, sounds like an exotic dancer. And Boomer's gonna survive the AI apocalypse here because he says hi to the AI bot.
Good job.
PvP says pull over for music. Outrageous. When did music become legal? Now PvP, it's illegal when they can hear your music over a block away. Is when it becomes
but you can drive a stock. Your car has a stock audio system. It's not like you have a custom with big boom boxes on the inside and all that crap.
Yeah. Nah,
it's just the stock radio.
They can hear it half a block away. It is a little too loud. And Nemesis says, he was probably listening to Gorilla Radio. If Boomer says, hey, motorcycles are cool. And Nemesis says, not a fan of douchebags who rev and make noises and race up and down the road. And here's PvP's channel for your rock and roll needs. And Peter says, my name isn't PvP Gorilla. Oh, sorry, Peter. And PvP here says loud rap in car sucks. Unbearable. No, it depends on what the rap is. Because there's some good rap out there.
Well, that's a matter of opinion.
I can send you some of Tom McDonald's.
No, don't send me. No, it's okay. Don't send me anything. I don't like anything that has the F word, the N word, the B word.
No, he doesn't.
The S word and all the other words constantly by a bunch of people who are illiterate and don't know how to write poetry.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't swear in his.
No thanks.
He doesn't swear in his own.
Not my bag, but I appreciate that though. Okay, are we caught up?
Yeah. Oh, except for some emoji here from Peter. But yep, we're completely caught up.
All right. So Gilligan notices a big table on the beach, and he doesn't know what it is. So it immediately calls for the skipper and the professor, which I guess fortunately they just happen to be right there within earshot. And they say, "Bring it." He said, "I found something." And he said, "Well, bring it here." And he said, "I can't."
Well, I think they were assessing the damage to whatever that hut is they have on the beach.
Yeah,
Or
that's what
the
I was going to say because there's a structure on the beach which usually isn't there. I was going to say that too, right there. And as you can see, this is filmed on the outside, on the lagoon set on the outside of the soundstage. You can tell because this is natural sunlight. So we got that prop rock, and that rock right there to the left of on the left of the screen seems to move inside and outside depending on the scene sometimes.
yeah. Now I was gonna say I will change the scene slightly. Like when they told them, "I'll bring it here," oh, had Gilligan try to pick it up and go, "Nope, I can't." Have him
Yeah,
actually try
that's
to lift
true,
it.
right?
That would have been great there. Have him actually try to lift it.
So here they come. They say, "What is it now, Gilligan?" And of course, Gilligan and I'm sorry, Professor and Skipper investigate, and Professor immediately recognizes it. I can't believe it. It's too good to be true, he says.
Yeah. And now I got a question. Is it just me, or does it seem like whenever there's like a mystery that when they're examining something, they play the same music over?
They tend to do that sometimes. Well, it's like Star Trek. By the time what is it like this beginning of the second season, they stop making original music and they just recycle it. A lot
Oh
of shows
no,
did that back then.
no,
I think they still do.
what's his name got let go from the show end of third
Alexander
season?
Courage.
No, the guy who wrote the music. He wrote the music for 3 seasons, then they let him
Wait,
go,
wait.
and then
Gilligan's
came
Island
to
was
like
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Yeah, it's
For
Alexander
the
Courage.
oh, I thought it started with the last name started with an R.
No, I don't know who
Yeah,
that is. No, Alexander Courage did the Star Trek, and then the incidental music, like during some of the episodes, was Fred Freeburger. Oh no, I'm
okay,
sorry,
because
not Fred Freeburger.
it came basically background stock music after that because the person.
Yeah, and just like with Gilligan's Island here, we had the first season that was the music was done by John Williams, and then they eventually left, and they filled it in with the same guy who did the fill-in music for Star Trek. So yes, a lot of it music, it'll get where you'll recognize that they use it several times.
No, no, it's Jerry Goldman. No, it wasn't
Jerry
Jerry Gold.
Goldsmith? No, no,
No,
I
wait,
don't.
that's the theme music. That's the theme.
So here's where the professor says they could possibly. He says it's the communication cable, and Skipper Gilligan still don't quite understand what he could do with it. He says they could possibly make a phone with it. And the reason why I pointed out in the prior scene that it was shot outside, you could tell by the natural sunlight, is now we have them working on that same cable, which is supposed to be on the beach, except now they're inside the soundstage. And you can tell by the studio lights. Notice the background has changed. That rock's gone. That structure that was laying on its side is gone, but the cable's
But
still there. So,
is this a different angle? Could be a different angle.
well, we're assuming that the angle is from the lagoon looking at them. If it's a different angle, then you would probably see the lagoon, I'm guessing. But either way, it's definitely the sound stage now. It's definitely not. They're not outside now. They're definitely indoors.
Okay.
And now the professor's assessing that the current must have pulled this loop of cable into the lagoon. And they're talking about they're all excited now. The option that this is their chance of being rescued. And the professor says that there's a way they could tap into this line and perhaps build a phone. And they tell Gilligan to go tell all the other castaways the good news. And he says, "What good news?"
Oh yeah, leave it to Gilligan.
Right. And they said about the telephone. And he says, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that good news." So we have Ginger listening to the radio, listening to the news, the Hollywood Reporter, talking about how I guess they're going to be making a movie called The Ginger Grant Story based on her life. By the way, they don't usually do that unless they assume somebody's dead.
Uh,
But they don't
I thought,
mention that in this episode.
yeah. Well, I thought they are. I thought they aren't they considered dead if you're missing after like 90 days or something.
Well, that's just it. I'm not sure the length of time, but yeah, after a certain amount of time, they consider them lost or dead. But that's what I'm saying is they're not going to say those words on this show. So all they did
Yeah.
was say that they're making the Ginger Grant story based on her life, and she's all excited. Triangle Studio, which of course is a fictitious studio, said they confirmed the persistent rumors that they are going to make the Ginger Grant story. The movie will be a tribute to Miss Grant, whose promising career was so tragically cut short. See, that's the most they said. They didn't say what happened to her, or that she was lost, or assumed dead. None of that. They're not going to do that because obviously this is a comedy, and they want to keep it lighthearted. So I'm kind of glad for that. And so she's all excited. My life story, I can't believe it. And then the news reporter continues, casting will begin immediately, and all of Hollywood wonders just who will be selected to play the part of the beautiful Ginger Grant. And here we have Mrs. Howell, and she's trying to get Mrs. Howell to listen to the radio, and she says they're talking about me. Notice this here. The Colombian Broadcasting System announces. That is real. Do you know what Colombian Broadcasting System is, Gorilla?
The CBS?
Yes. So that's their way of promoting the network without saying CBS. But right, that's
usually,
what CBS stands for, Colombian Broadcasting. That's how they're able to get away with it too.
yeah. So that's a lot nicer than what they do. They did it in, like, Futurama and all that. They just sit there and bash Fox and stuff. And I think
Yes.
Family Guy did their sat there and bash Fox.
I
Like
think
the
Simpsons.
jokes
Yeah, I
at
think
Fox.
Simpsons used to. Yeah, I think Simpsons used to make fun of Fox too sometimes. I don't know if they did since Disney bought them over or not.
Disney wouldn't allow that nowadays. It was always
Even
a good.
Married with Children used to.
Yeah, I haven't watched much of Married with Children. Maybe I should put that on the watch list for
Oh
when
my
we're.
God, my goodness! If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best.
No, I've seen quite a few episodes, but I don't remember. I don't recall them making fun of Fox.
Yes, every now and then they'll poke fun at Fox.
Yeah.
So, and the Colombian broadcast, if he's one Colombian, what that means is it was originally owned by Columbia Studios. So the Colombian Broadcasting System announces that the star of their new TV series, and of course Mrs. Howell, if I were you, I'd sue. So Mrs. Howell is offended because it's a TV series and not a movie.
No. She said they're gonna be play. So they made a comment.
Oh,
About
that's right. It was a hippo, right? A hippo series or something like that.
Yeah, hippopotamus series.
And she's mistaken, and Ginger says, "No, not that."
Yeah. Should we catch up on chat here?
Sure, go for it. Thank you.
Yeah, Peter says, yeah, loud, soft rock and cars is an absolute worst. That's not too bad if it's the right music. If you great emphasis, loud motorcycles are one of the few reasons that I might that they are not stopped riding them. And he said, and PvP says, never understood super loud music car speakers. Definitely not enjoyable. Well, mine wasn't loud, but my windows are down because my air conditioner don't work, and it was 95 today. And Nemesis says, right, PvP, that and the lack of bugs makes winter somewhat bearable. They declare you dead after a certain amount of time. Yeah, I think it's 90 days. It could be less. I'm going on the high end, though.
Yeah, they do search parties and all that crap, and that for a certain amount of time you're assumed missing or lost.
Yeah, and it depends on how you're lost. At sea, it's probably a lot less time. The BBB says, I think it was the Columbia Broadcasting System, not Colombian. But I think that's one of those that change names for tax reasons all the time.
Yeah, it was Columbia. Thank you for the correction.
Yeah, well, they could change their names, too, for tax reasons. It's like...
No, it's not tax reasons. Columbia, they can say Colombian because that's still a fictitious name. But it's close to Columbia.
Oh, they couldn't actually say the actual name on there?
No, I'm saying they could if they wanted to, but they didn't. Instead, they just added the N and created a fictitious name. But no, if it's CBS, they can say Columbia Broadcasting System.
Okay, I just thought maybe studios change their names every few years because, like around here, a lot of packing houses, they change their name every 7 years to take take advantage of some tax codes and all that stuff.
Yeah, the networks definitely do not. It's been CBS since the beginning, NBC, ABC. Those have been the names since the very beginning, and they will
Okay.
always publish. They will probably, as long as they last, they'll stay with those names. They've been owned by different companies, but they always keep those names.
Yeah. And the Boomer here says pop culture. I was watching from 1956, Hot Rod Girl. I think I've seen that.
Is that
Pretty
Mamie
campy
Van
was.
Buren? Let me see.
I can't remember it. Says pretty campy. Was surprised to see that Alexander Courage did the music for it. Used to used a band full of very serious jazz musicians. Yeah, I remember that movie.
Very
There,
cool.
um, Mr. Londell had it on his channel for his movies there. So, PvP here says maybe they added one letter to not be totally obvious.
That's possible, right? Not to be too much on the nose.
Yeah, it was totally obvious, so I picked up on it right away.
And I'm sure the adults in the audience at the time knew that kids wouldn't know, but the adults would have known.
Yeah.
So
All right.
Mrs. House says you should be. When they hear hippopotamus, Mrs. House says you should be offended. And she says no. She said no, it's about me. She said really? She says yeah, the Ginger Grant story. Oh, what a marvelously original title. Of course, that's a joke because it's not an original title. You know, if you were in Hollywood, they'd say you weren't right for the part. And that's a great joke because Ginger says if she was there, she would like to be in the movie. She would like to play the part. And of course, Mrs. Howell says they wouldn't select you. They'd say you weren't right for the part, which is a great inside joke because that's often how Hollywood would do it.
Yeah.
And Ginger says, I'll be old enough to play my own grandmother.
Yeah, by the time they get rescued.
But yeah, by the time they get rescued. And here comes Gilligan running in all excited, and he's saying at the lagoon, the telephone. And of course, like I said, we're having to skip every few frames, so it's hard to catch all the jokes. And they said a telephone, and he says, how did you know? And he says, I ran all the way, so he's mistaken. He's thinking they already know, and they didn't. So he's disappointed, and he
Yeah.
runs out. And here we have Mr. Howell with his boisterous voice, searching through
Yeah,
everything, looking for something.
yeah, and he sounded like a true married man. Where that damn wife she's always putting stuff where I can't find it, blah. Sound like a true married man.
And yeah, I know it exactly right. And of course, Mr. Howell is busy looking for something, and he keeps interrupting Gilligan when he's trying to tell him about the phone. And all he cares about is that he's looking for he wants to go play golf, and he's looking for a certain shirt, a silver lame polo shirt. And Gilligan
Yep.
says, I have some real important, and of course he interrupts him again. Important? It's catastrophic. It's the only one of its kind. If I don't find it, I'm going to notify the FBI, Scotland Yard, the New York Stock Exchange. I notify them about everything. And then he
That's what he
realizes
wrote.
maybe Mary Ann has it. Right, he
Yeah.
realizes Mary Ann might have it because she does the laundry. Obviously, Ginger's not going to do the laundry.
Oh, what does Ginger even do around here?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If everybody has chores, I wonder what Ginger's is. Maybe to help cook? We've seen her cook before.
Adding a pinch of salt there's not cooking.
Yeah, you're right. And of course, Gilligan's still trying to tell Mr. Howell about the telephone cable. Mr. Howell is interrupting him and says, oh, miss, don't stand there, boy. So he tells Gilligan to go ask Marianne about his shirt.
That's when he was just I would have had him like right when he's walking out of the hut. Go, well, you could call the FBI in Scotland Yard from the lagoon with the telephone.
Right.
Make it so Mr. Howell wouldn't hear him, but yet he's still
Yes.
just slight little changes to it. But I am watching this after the fact, and I don't have to worry about run times.
And here's where Gilligan runs into Marianne, who's doing laundry. Unfortunately, he bumps into the clothesline and knocks the laundry on the ground. And she says, oh, I just washed all that. And everything fell off the laundry line except for Mr. Howell's polo shirt.
What
he
luck?
says, "Oh, sorry, what's that?"
I said, oh, what luck?
Yes,
That's all. Yeah. Oops. Oh, Pop muted himself. Yeah, what luck? The one thing that he needs is the one that didn't
yeah.
fall around get all sandy.
Sorry, I had to mute it for a second.
Yeah.
And then he tells Marianne, "Oh, I almost forgot. There's a telephone," as he leaves. And she says, "What would Gilligan think of next?"
Yeah, because
We
he's
did
like, telephone, lagoon. Then they all start like running.
right. Then she gets excited. We didn't catch it between frames, but she gets excited and then runs off and heads towards the lagoon. So now we have Gilligan back at Mr. Howell's hut, gives him the shirt. Now Mr. Howell's calmed down, and he's willing to listen to Gilligan. And Gilligan says, "Did you hear? There's a telephone line at the lagoon." And Mr. Howell says, "No, but could you hum it?" So that's kind of a joke, like it's a song. I like that. I think that was. I have a feeling that may have been an improvisation on Jim Backus's part because he was well known for improvising lines, and sometimes they would keep it in the script. And I have a feeling that was an improvisation. I could be wrong, but that seemed spontaneous in my opinion. It was a good joke.
Yeah, they don't seem that. They don't seem to do that very much anymore.
No, they don't. No, they're not allowed to anymore. You've seen Smokey and the Bandit?
Oh yeah. First
Okay,
one was wonderful. Second one was okay.
right. Well,
Third one
Jackie
about
Gleason, right? Jackie Gleason, the guy that plays Sheriff Buford T. Justice, right? You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, Buford T.
When they
Just
right when they handed him the script, all it would say is Buford goes this way, Buford goes that way, Buford. Jackie Gleason improvised almost everything that he said in that movie.
oh nice.
Yes, that's how good he was at comedy and spontaneous because he grew up or he got his start on live TV doing the honeymooners and things like that, and a lot of that was improvisational as well. So yeah, if you ever watch, for anybody out there listening, you want to see a true talent genius, a comedic genius, it's definitely Jackie Gleason because that he's what makes that movie. The first Smoking the Bandit. Without him in it, we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But it's a hilarious movie. He's very funny in it. And 85% of what he said was all spontaneous. He made up on the spot.
Yeah, but don't watch the second or third one.
Yeah, you can stop after the first one. I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, the second one was okay. The third one about wrecked the first one for me. It was
Well,
that bad.
the second one almost wrecked the first one. The third one almost destroyed the first two.
Yeah, I'm glad they stopped when they did.
Yeah,
So
they were gonna make another one where Smokey is the bandit, or did they make that one where it was gonna show Jackie Gleason in Burt Reynolds' clothes with the red shirt and the blue jeans? But they decided to cancel that. Thank goodness, that would have been horrible. I think they realized they milked that one for all it was worth.
oh
So
yeah.
here's where Gilligan finally gets through to Mr. Howell. But he's not saying there's a telephone line at the lagoon. He's saying there's a telephone at the lagoon.
Yep, he's following Skipper's words precisely.
Yes. And he says, yes, you already told Marianne and Ginger. He says, Marianne, Ginger, why didn't you tell me, my boy? If it's so important, speak up. Now, of course, that's a joke because he kept trying to ignore, or he kept, sorry. It's the joke because he kept interrupting Gilligan when he was trying to tell him earlier.
Yeah, Gilligan says, you kept interrupting me.
All right, he says, I tried, but he says, well, from now on, speak up, you hear. And of course, he interrupts him again.
Hmm.
And Mr. Howell heads off towards the lagoon. And now here's the professors telling them that they can maybe put a break in the line or something, and they'll have
Oh,
to find the break, and we're
Skip,
saved.
well, Skipper says that we should break. But I suggest that we break the line. That way they have to send our prayer crew out. And Professor Cruxman goes, that's simply how it works. They anticipate the breaks in the line. It could take a month before they decide to come out and fix the cable.
Yes, right there. It might be a few months. By using parts from the radio, I can tap into the lines. and we'll be able to call for help. And of course, here comes Ginger. Where's the phone? I had to call my agent. Of course, she's assuming that there's actual phone right there on the beach. And of course, here come the Howells and Mary Ann butting in. And everyone's excited and they're all asking at the same time. And of course, Skipper is getting their attention, whistles, and says, "Quiet, quiet, everybody." Only one knucklehead could have gotten this thing so messed up. And here we have Gilligan. Skipper, Skipper, I told him the good news.
Yeah.
So here they are with a hacksaw trying to cut through the cable. And this is the last blade. Go ahead.
Yeah, they went through like 5 or 6 blades, didn't they?
Yeah, and apparently because it shows them Skipper. They'll show here in a second with them in his hand, and it's too bad because considering they're going to be on the island another 14 years.
You think they will stop at the second one, not to waste their blades, but it's still part of the joke there. But
well, not only that though, but if you're honestly thinking that's going to rescue, I probably would use up all the blades. I don't know.
I surely will save one or two just in case something did happen.
So here we are. They tried again. Let's hope it cuts through the metal casing. Don't want to show too much without getting. And of course, it breaks. Oh no, another blade. It hardly scratched the surface, says the professor. There must be something. Oh, use your head, Gilligan. And he says, I don't think it's hard enough.
Yeah.
And then the professor realizes diamonds are the hardest known substance. Perhaps the Howells have a diamond I could use to cut. Which is a good idea. You're so smart, you make me feel like I've got brains in my feet, says Gilligan. And Skipper says, Gilligan, why don't you use your brains and go get diamonds from the Howells? And he said, yeah.
Yeah, and they assume that the Howells have them on them.
Which they do. Everybody knows that. And this Howell's wearing them all the time. So Mr. Howell's willing. And of course, the Howells, which is good. The Howells are excited and they're willing to help. So they're willing to volunteer their diamonds. So here they have their box of diamonds for Mrs. Howell, and they open it up. Oh, yes, 5 carats. And they only have 5 carats and up, of course. And Gilligan doesn't understand that. And he says, I'd rather have a diamond. A carat's not hard enough. Yeah. And she says, no, a carat, not a carrot.
Yeah. And welcome, LDG.
Hello, LDG. Good to see you. Glad you could join us. Hope you're doing well. But it's funny. She corrects him and says, no, it's not a carrot. It's a carrot, even though it sounds exactly the same.
Yeah.
I meant carrots. Carrots. I mean, never mind, Lovey. Let's just find a diamond for the professor. Oh, Thurston, do you remember when you gave me this? Oh, yes, that was on December 14th. Anniversary? Oh, no. She said it was, I can't remember the exact line, but it was basically just a regular day. But he gave it to her anyway just to celebrate.
Yeah, it's January 14th.
Right.
Because it only happens once a year.
Yes.
You know, I wish I could have money like that to buy a diamond necklace. That much money to piss away on a diamond necklace just because it's a day.
You know, just some random the day of the year. It's like, I think I'll go buy a diamond necklace for my wife.
Yeah, I wish I had that kind of money to piss away.
September 26th. Oh, that was a nice edge. Maybe you could use that to cut the cable. Oh, Thurston, I have a marvelous idea. My diamond necklace. That'll make a wonderful saw, she says. There you are, Gilligan, my boy. So they hand him her diamond necklace. Now you have more carrots than Bugs Bunny, he says. And this is new. I think they're supposed to be on the outside in front of huts. But this is a new set because it looks like, I don't know if here's what I was thinking when I first saw this. Are they inside the girls' hut and Gilligan walks in? But no, there's no front door. And we know the girls' hut doesn't have a back door. So I'm guessing they're on the outside because they're sitting at that table. But then we've never seen this angle of the huts before. Like the huts are all together, like there's 3 of them together.
Maybe we've never seen them sit at that part of the table.
Or it's a different table. But it's the first time that we've seen multiple huts together in one scene, is my point.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought we've seen a couple of them together before.
Or we've seen
Like
a
the
couple like a
professor's
few feet
house.
apart. Right, we've seen a couple of
Oh,
few feet apart. But
okay.
here they just, I don't know. I guess basically what I'm saying is a little behind the scenes info. You could tell these are portable walls, and they just move them around for the scene.
Yeah,
So
they
I
might
don't
have
think
had.
those are actual huts.
Maybe they had to
And
do
not,
that to hide something in the back.
right, not only that, but why would they decorate the outside of the huts? You notice how there's things sitting on those little shelves. But anyway, that's sorry about nitpicking, guys. So Gilligan walks in with the diamond necklace, and Marianne says, "What are you doing with that?" And he says, "I got to make a phone call." And of course, they're confused. They don't understand. He doesn't explain. Ginger, did you hear that? No, I'm busy making notes, she says. I'm writing everything that's happened to us. She's already starting her memoir because she's hoping to get back and play in that movie that's the Ginger Grant story. He said he had a diamond necklace. Why would he need that to make a phone call? So she's still wondering. I guess from here, everything's a long distance call, she says. So here we have the professor has fabricated some sort of rigged together a saw, which is pedal powered, and they're having Gilligan obviously do the labor, and they have the diamond necklace attached to it. And Ginger is continuing making notes for her memoirs, saying, "Do you remember when the raft floated out with the provisions?" Everything she seems to bring up seems to be incidents where Gilligan failed and caused a disaster. And Gilligan's kind of taking note of that, so that you can tell by the look on his face.
Yeah,
Wasn't it
if you're
Gilligan who? Go ahead.
yeah, well, if you're gonna do flashback stories, this is the way to do it. Where they just go, "Hey, remember that one episode? Hey, you remember that one episode?" Not like
Yes,
not like how they did it, like Shades of Grey. That
the
just
clip
sucked
episode.
the clip episode. There, this is the way they did it. Well, they had a good clip episode here too with Santa.
Yeah, that was
There,
the clip episode, right?
yeah.
And she says, "Wasn't it Gilligan who forgot to tie the mooring line?"
Mm,
And when the ship sailed past, was that April or May? She's asking the professor. Of course, Gilligan realizes that he knows they're talking about him. And when the ship sailed past, was that April or May? And I think the professor says, "I think it's April." You mean when we tried to attract the ship's attention? Yeah, and we found out that Gilligan put the flare on Skipper's birthday cake.
yeah.
Nobody's perfect. And they said, "Gilligan, we're ready." So he's going to try the saw on the telephone line, and he has Gilligan to start pedaling. Let's see if these diamonds will cut through the casing. All right, start pedaling. So there we are. So I like that, the fact that it operates and we can see it trying to cut the cable. And faster Gilligan.
Now, did they just speed up the footage for this
No.
when they did it, or they Bob
If
Denver really?
they if they did like right here, when they show that this going really fast, they're not showing his feet at the same time. So it could be by another means.
Okay, because they seen him pedaling really fast, so that's why I thought maybe they sped up the footage and then they just were able to put their feet on him, to
Right.
stop him.
That's definitely real time. Because otherwise, when the professor turns around, he would be moving too fast, and their voice would be high pitched.
Okay,
Right there. See, Professor and Ginger are still moving at normal speed. So
okay,
Professor basically says, "It's no use. It's not working." And they tell Gilligan to stop pedaling. He says, "I can't." So they kind of help him stop pedaling there.
yeah. All right, should we catch
And
up on chat real quick?
yeah, good idea. Thank you.
PvP says get Ginger Diamonds, and LDG said evening. Peter said Neil Diamond. PvP says, did someone say carrots?
Yes,
Would
carrots.
would Ginger's memoirs be a pamphlet? Yeah, it could be a book or something. And go, clip episodes can be very bad. Anyway, heading out was fun. Well, you have a good night there, PvP.
See you later.
Just depends on how they do the clip episode.
Yes, I agree. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a good one. I don't know.
Yeah, the Christmas one wasn't too bad. No,
Yeah,
does
I've definitely seen worse.
well, the worst one I've ever seen was Shades of Grey.
I don't know what that is.
It's TNG season 2. They had to do they
Oh,
needed one more story for the finish out the season, and so and is in the midst of a writer's strike.
well, it explains why. Well, first of all, you said TNG, which explains why it's the worst. So I'm sure even if they had writers, I doubt if it would have been an improvement.
Well, they went to
So,
Pat the Cook show then.
and I doubt that would have been an improvement. But sorry, I know there's a lot of fans out there. I'm not a fan of TNG, and I'm especially not a fan of the writers of that show. So here's what the professor says: I'm afraid without a motor, we can't generate enough speed. And she says, I don't understand. And he says, we need. He said, in order to cut, we need friction and heat. And he says, heat. That's it. Fire. Maybe we can burn the casing off of the cable. The insulation inside will protect the phone wires.
Yeah. No way, Gilligan threw the blowtorch overboard.
Right, and that's when right. Well, have they said that? I don't think they've said that yet.
Oh,
And
it had to be very close.
she says, boy, I don't know what we do without your gray matter. And Kurt Gilligan doesn't understand that. He says, who cares about his laundry as long as he's smart?
Mhm.
But you're right. They did mention the torch. That for some reason, Gilligan threw it overboard just before they beached, according to what they just said.
Yeah.
So, how do you want your cable? Rare, medium, or well done? Says Gilligan. What do you
Yeah,
think, Professor? The fire, and he says the professor says the fire isn't hot enough. We must increase the intensity of the heat. Well, maybe this is where they mention the blowtorch. Yes, there it is. Yes, if only Gilligan hadn't thrown that blowtorch over. Oh, I forgot about that. The blowtorch. Certainly, he says the natural gas springs on the other side of the island. We can contain the gas in a water bottle. It might work at that, Professor. So here we have on the other side of the island, and we have Skipper tapping with bamboo, hoping to find a gas main, saying there's got to be natural gas around here somewhere. And of course, Ginger's still absorbed in her movie. And who do you want to play you in the movie? She says, Rock Hudson or Cary Grant. I know for you young guys, you probably don't know who either of those names are, but they were
no.
popular movie stars slash sex symbols back in the day. But even in the '60s, though, Rock Hudson was popular in the '60s, but Cary Grant was already retiring. But I guess that's what at the time, though, those names were big in Hollywood. So anytime anybody mentioned those names, people would recognize it. And
Okay.
Skipper says, "Well, Ginger, maybe you better get them both." And he taps at his belly. Do you have any other incidents for me? She says. Well, he says, "Well, the only thing I can recall of Gilligan is always goofing up." Of course,
Mhm.
just Gilligan comes along and he hears this. You're going to be the star of the Ginger Grant movie. That's what she tells Gilligan. So basically, he's going to be the star of her movie because everything's based around him because he makes all the goofs. That's one movie I'm not going to see, says Gilligan. So Skipper starts tapping the line and it starts hissing and they tap into a vein. So Skipper immediately grabs the water bottle when they were made of glass. By the way, I know you think people think of water bottles now as those cheap plastic things.
Oh, I was
Yeah, that
thinking it's gonna be like coconut, like they made it like out of the wood from a coconut tree or something, or a palm tree.
yeah, I guess they happen to have a bottle left over from the boat.
Yeah. Now I got a question. I thought natural gas was liquid form until they converted it to a gaseous form through your furnace.
Definitely not. It is just like Skipper says, it's gas and it's invisible. Not only that, though, but in reality, it has no scent. You know how around your house, have you ever had a gas leak and you can smell it? Have you ever noticed
Yeah,
that?
that it's added to it.
They add sulfur to it so you could smell it. So yeah, if you had like natural gas, like we all get it, come into our homes. If it was just right out of the tap, you wouldn't smell it. So people would be dying if there was a gas leak in their homes. So they add sulfur to it to add the smell, so that people know when there's a gas leak. So Professor Skipper's right. Natural gas is a gas and it's not a liquid. You'll see a lot of times where there's videos on YouTube where people are working in their backyards and they'll accidentally hit, like with a jackhammer or something, they'll hit into a gas line and it'll catch on fire. and you'll see the fire spewing out of the ground like a big torch. Oh, so Skipper puts the bottle over the tube to capture the gas, and he says, "Oh, that should do it." And here's where this is what we were just talking about. Gilligan asked him, "How do you know there's gas?" And he said, "Oh, there's gas in there." And he said, "But you can't see it." And he says, "But Gilligan, gas is invisible," which is true. Don't see gas. He says, "I better check to be sure." Right? Because gas, like your stove and natural gas, is different than the gas you put in your car. It's two different kind of gases, even though the name's the same. And Gilligan says, "I better check for sure." And Gilligan takes the bottle off and starts sniffing in it.
Yeah, I just
And when he
loved the
does, it
music
makes him dizzy, and we
had
get
that.
this scene.
Yeah, I just loved the music that they had in there. That was pretty good music that they had in there.
Kind of like a loopy music.
Yeah. Then the
And
then oh, I better wait a second.
and Ginger comes running in, Skipper, and he says, "Look out, Ginger." Oh, Ginger, he didn't think there was any gas in it. So he's explaining to Ginger what happened with Gilligan.
Yeah.
I told
Then
him
he
there
takes
was, and he, go ahead.
yeah. Then he takes a big old whiff.
Right. He makes the exact same mistake that Gilligan did. And then does the same thing and starts acting loopy. So we cut to later on, and it looks like they've got the handmade torch that the professor made, and they're cutting through the cable, and you can see all the telephone lines. And Ginger says, "Oh, I hope it works. Just a little bit more, and that'll do it." Oh, I don't. And they're talking about Mrs. House is about the professor. I don't know what we do without him. That is definitely true. I know he's a genius. Excuse me, Ginger. And he puts the torch down over on the side. Now I've got to straight the wires so we can make contact. He says, and Gilligan steps in and unfortunately stands right in front of the torch. Watch out, Professor. He's simply marvelous. And everybody's attention is focused on the skipper and him, or on the professor and him cutting through the phone lines. And Mr. Howell says, "I'm going to hire him for Howell Industries." Well, this is exciting. And then Gilligan says, "I'm getting warmer.
Yeah.
Watch your
Yeah.
fingers." Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Welcome, Euler Greg.
"Hey, Lola, great. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well."
Yeah.
It sure
Now,
takes Gilligan a long time to feel the heat from this torch,
yeah,
doesn't it?
I know from experience. As soon as the butt would even touch that flame, you will have known this. I know this from personal experience.
So
And
you've
he,
had this happen?
well, not with a blowtorch. I spilled some gas on my pants like when I started using it to light a bonfire.
Oh, no. You're one of those. You started a bonfire with gasoline?
Yeah, why not?
Well, because I like watching videos on YouTube, the people that do that, they're hilarious.
Oh,
My
oh,
my cousin Danny did it with diesel, and he burned off 3 fingers.
yeah. No, I accidentally spilled some on my pants like I didn't notice So I went to start the fire there, and we had that poof. And all of a sudden, I see my pant leg start to fire. My
Right.
first instinct was to start stripping, but nope.
I
I
was going to ask
decided
that.
I decided I was going to listen to the fire department to stop, drop, and roll. So I stopped, dropped, and roll. The flames just getting bigger and bigger there. That's when I decided to start stripping on my pants right there in the backyard. And here the neighbors were sitting there watching. Nobody fucking coming out to help.
No, they're busy enjoying the show.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I will say though, the neighbor girl started talking to me more after that.
Hey, there, and I know what to do next time.
Here, let's catch up on chat here real quick. PvP says yes, night to you all. Yeah, no, Greg says hello, Poppin' Gorilla, and hello to you too. And
Yeah, good to see you.
says this episode gave me the chance to talk to other people. It would have been an interesting to keep up with the premise for a few episodes.
Yes,
Yeah,
actually, it is. It's a good idea.
yeah. No, but if that would have been a real scene, Gilligan would have had third-degree burns on his ass, and he wouldn't have been able
Well, if
to
he was
sit
stood
down.
there that long, right? Normally, you would feel the heat immediately and move away from it, but right. But they show him standing there for or at least a minute or so. So yeah, they definitely milked that joke.
Yeah, almost to the point where it's like unbelievable,
And there's something else I
especially
want to point out. Go ahead.
especially to people who've had this happen to them.
And there's something else I want to point out in this scene. If you guys look real carefully, you might want to biggie and enlarge the screen. But in real life, first of all, the character in the show, Ginger Grant, the actress, was not married. Obviously, she was single and she was an actress, right? But in
Yeah.
real life, Tina Louise was married, and you can see her wedding ring on her hand in this scene.
Oh, I
There
thought
were
that maybe
sometimes. Sorry, go ahead.
you think they made her take that off or something.
Well, they normally do. Well, Bob Denver, Gilligan, he did the same thing. There are a few scenes in some episodes where he forgets to take off his wedding ring. It just happens, and the
Okay.
editor in the editing room, they don't notice, and it gets by them. So this is what happens. But yeah, that's actual Tina Louise's wedding ring.
Okay, I didn't even
Right,
catch that.
right. They normally take them off. Obviously when they're not shooting, or when they are shooting, and then they put them back on when they're not shooting. But sometimes they tend to forget. And of course, here we are. The castaways are all excited. They're cutting through the cable. And Gilligan's, I'm so excited. I'm sweating. And it's still burning away. We can telephone for help. And then here's where we see smoke. See how she still got that ring on. See? So that's definitely, and it's on her way. It's on her fourth finger. So that is definitely Tina Louise's wedding ring, which you will not see very often in this series. And here's where Ginger starts to notice a smell. I smell something burning, and he says, "So do I." And that's when they realize that Gilligan's on fire. And Gilligan realizes it too and runs into the lagoon. Now, this is where they speed up the film, obviously. And there we go. And now we have our makeshift telephone put together with apparently it looks like a conch shell or a seashell of some sort. And we're assuming parts from the radio from what the professor said earlier. And he says now each one of these telephone lines is capable of transmitting 50 calls simultaneously. Right now, there are 2,000 calls being carried through them. Let's see if we can tap in on one of those calls. And now that they get the Portuguese language, what's um, interesting is my good friend, which we see in the chat, mad scientist. He's very fluent in Portuguese. I wish he was here right now. He could tell us. I would ask him, is this real Portuguese they're saying, or is it gibberish? And what are they saying if it's Portuguese?
Yeah. Oh,
He's
here
from
let's
Portugal.
let's
Go ahead.
catch up the chat. Here we got four of them. And
Thank you.
Greg says the nature of the single episode format precludes that.
Yes.
Yeah. Phantom says Euler Greg, and OG says can't afford to ruin good clothes on the island, especially the poor guys who have very limited clothing options.
Right.
Well, there's a reason Marianne's on the island.
Yep,
OG
that's right.
says, "Hey Phantom," and typical '60s looking phone. And welcome Basil. He
Hello,
says, "Hello,
Basil Battle Dragon. Yeah,
better
good to
late
see
than
you.
never." We're only halfway through the first episode.
Yeah, about halfway through the first.
Yeah. And Euler Greg says, "Remember party lines? Sometimes we cross lines."
Oh, yes, absolutely. So now they're all excited because they heard somebody speaking Portuguese. And they said, Professor, you did it. It worked. And Gilligan says, I can't understand a word. And the professor says, well, he's speaking Portuguese. Oh, good. I haven't talked on the phone so long.
I
I
thought they
hadn't realized that it might be difficult. So he's
no,
where. Go
no.
ahead.
He said, I haven't talked on the phone so long. I thought I forgot how to listen to on the phone or something like
Right.
that."
And then something like that, yeah. And the professor explains that these telephone lines pretty much go all the way around the world. So there's all these different languages, and they need to find lines where somebody speaks English and somebody a language they can understand. And of course, Mrs. Howe, oh, I speak fluent French and Italian. And Ginger says, well, I'm good with a few of the. No, Skipper says good with a few island dialects, and that'll help if we happen to get a. And Professor says, "Well, I know Latin," and
well,
then Mister Howell says, that'll be help if we happen to get a
yeah.
pharmacist."
Let's see. Ginger knows Spanish. Uh, the skipper knows a few of the island dialects around Hawaii and stuff. Uh, Mrs. Howell is fluent in French and
Italian, I think she said.
no, yeah, Italian there. The professor is fluent in Latin, and Mr. Howell is fluent in the universal language,
Money,
money.
right? I can only speak English. I know some slang, and that's where he says, "I know the universal language, money, of course."
Yeah.
And Professor says, "I know you. I suggest you all take turns monitoring these calls until you can find one with a language you can understand. Meanwhile, I'll rig up a microphone so they can hear us." And he leaves, and everybody gets excited. I hope this gets us rescued. Well, I do too, Gilligan, says the skipper. "I can hardly wait to get to my favorite restaurant," says the skipper. And he says, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says
He
he
wants
wants a
a
sandwich.
he wants his favorite steak sandwich there, a fillet in between two top sirloins.
Exactly right.
And Gilligan wants a chocolate burger.
Right, chocolate covered hamburger.
Yeah, that sounds
And
interesting there. I've had a peanut butter burger before, and it wasn't bad. So,
oh, where'd you get that at? Was that just an idea or what?
yeah, over at Silverbacks.
You mean that's something that's on a menu somewhere?
Yeah.
Ooh, ugh.
Hey, don't just until
Oh
you try
well.
it.
Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, there was a pizza place in California, in Fresno, in the Central Valley. It was like a big. It wasn't Chuck E. Cheese, but it was like a big family pizza place with an arcade and everything. And I remember they put peanut butter on pizza, and I was like, "What the?" But I don't know. I had never heard of a hamburger on a pizza. So it was good.
It was all right.
Would you do it again?
Maybe. It's not something I'd order all the time.
Interesting. Well, apparently it's popular. I guess it's and regional. Food is very regional. Like when I was in the South, they had like deep fried pickles, deep fried nuts, and I was like, no, that's not for me. No,
Oh,
boiled nuts and deep fried pickles. That was it.
well, if you go to Texarkana, you can get deep fat fried butter. And you
Well,
can
I've seen
get
that.
deep fat fried Coke and deep fat fried Mountain
Yeah,
Dew.
I've seen those at carnivals and fairs.
But who'd eat a stick of deep fat fried butter?
I know something tells me somebody extremely overweight.
Yeah. Like, deep fried ice cream is pretty good.
It sounds good, and it's easy to make from what I've seen. I was watching a recipe on YouTube. You just have
Yeah.
to get the ice cream really, really, really cold and frozen, and then roll it in the batter, and you just dip it in the hot oil
Yes.
just for just a couple seconds.
Yeah, it's not hard. We use cornflakes.
That'll work. Something sweet like that, yeah. I would use like frosted flakes or something like that, probably.
Yeah.
Or Fruit Loops. That would be good for a coating.
Yeah. Hey,
Mm.
welcome, mad scientist. We were just talking about you.
Hello, mad scientist. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. And when we say we were talking, it was in a good way. Uh, I'll get you caught up, mad scientist. We're watching Gilligan's Island, where a telephone line washed up on the island. The castaways found it, and they're trying to build a phone so they could tap into a telephone line to call for help. And they were testing different lines to try to find one that speaks English. And they happened to find a line where somebody was speaking Portuguese. And the professor, they all said they didn't understand the language. And the professor said, well, it's Portuguese. And I wish you'd have been here when we had that. Well, of course, I can't play it without getting a copyright strike anyway. But
Well, you
I know Mad Scientist knows Portuguese. And I was just wondering if it was real Portuguese. And I'm guessing it probably was because it did sound similar to Spanish, which I know is a variation.
Yeah. Well, you could have gotten by with that if you just fought the claim. They will give that one up right away because we've been doing an in-depth discussion on the particular scene in an episode. That would have been
That's true.
that'd been a very, very easy fight.
Hopefully. I
They
don't know.
will,
CBS is pretty tough.
yeah, they will give that one up because they'd have no way to win that. Here, Peter says conch phone. Greg says very
Control.
popular phone on deserted islands, Peter. And Peter says as long as there's at least two.
Exactly right. Otherwise, what's the point?
Did they string up a bunch of shells or something around the island so they could talk to each other on the other side of the islands? At one
I think
point,
they tried that earlier. I think they tried that earlier with one string to another, but they realized it didn't work.
yeah, oh, they only did it for one episode. That was the premise of an episode. And OG
Yes.
here says, or one with a connection to the outside world, as we
Right.
see here. And Boomer says they have peanut butter burgers at Jamburger Jennery's. Cool.
I haven't heard of that one either. That sounds regional.
Yeah. Mad Scientist says, evening, gents. The
Good to see you,
snowman's
mad
on strike
scientist.
there, Mad Scientist. It's been 95 degrees with 115 heat index for the last 3 days.
What's the humidity like?
200%.
Oh, ooh, no
I go
fun.
outside, start sweating, and evaporate right off of me. Then I'd re-sweat some more and evaporate some more.
Boy, you got to make sure to drink a lot of water.
What's this water you speak of?
It's that liquid that doesn't have alcohol in it.
Oh, that non-sugary stuff that has no taste.
Yeah,
Except
that's
for
the one,
fluoride.
right?
The fluoride
Right.
taste, too.
Yes.
Yeah, and Phantom Mover says pronounce Hamburger Henry's. Cool.
Hamburger Henry's, okay. All right, so here's where Skipper taps into a line where they hear an Hawaiian language. So they get excited about that.
Not for long.
And Gilligan starts calling everybody. He says, Gilligan, what are you doing? And he says, rounding up the gang. Not quiet. So what they're listening to is it's Hawaiian language because Skipper says he understands some island dialects and languages. So what it is they're listening to somebody speaking Hawaiian, planning on robbing a bank, and he's telling yes, and he's telling Gilligan to be quiet. The job is gonna be pulled off the 10th of next month. What's today? He says today is the 2nd. Tomorrow could be the 3rd. Never mind that, Gilligan. Of course, in frustration. Will you shut up now? They're trying to rob a bank. I'll stop him, Skipper. I know how. And Gilligan gets the wire cutters and cuts the line. Now they can't talk to each other anymore. Oh, Gilligan, what's to prevent them from talking on that wire? That's the last thing you want to say to Gilligan, but he does. So Gilligan starts cutting different wires. And he says, would you stop that, Gilligan? You'll break into the wire and I'll break your you break into the wire and I'll break your neck. You gotta use this to get off the island. So here they are checking out the professor who's building the telephone. And it looks like he's making rubber in this pot, which I thought was odd because you think it would be extremely hot. So, no luck so far, Professor. He says just finished boiling down sap from the rubber tree. So maybe I guess it's cooling down at this point because they don't exactly show a fire under it. And Gilligan starts stirring it, of course. Perhaps we can make contact with the United States. Looks more like tapioca pudding, says Gilligan. And he sticks his hand in it, of course. I'm guessing they probably used oatmeal for this scene. But it's Skipper, Gilligan, get your hand out of there. And Skipper pulls out his hand, and of course it's covered with rubber. And he peels it off like a latex glove, which it probably is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I noticed that was a latex glove on the inside of his hand there they pulled out.
Right.
They probably could shoot some gloop on there.
Right, and it makes sense because that's what they're trying to say, that it's made out of rubber, which latex is similar to. You keep pulling around, you're going to need... Okay. He says, let me explain the joke for the young people. Old people might get the joke. But when Gilligan pulls it off, he says, I feel like Ben Casey. And Ben Casey was a TV show back in the day where he was a doctor. So that's what the joke means. So he says, you keep pulling around, you're going to need... And then Skipper says, you keep pulling around and you're going to need Ben Casey. So if you didn't get the joke, that's what it means. And the professor says, here, Skipper, hold on to this. I'm going to use it to make a dial. And Gilligan foolishly sticks his other hand in. And they say, "What are you doing?" He says, "Making a glove with my other hand." I told you before, keep your hand out of there. Now, turn it around, Skipper. So Gilligan has this big goop on his hand that he wasn't expecting. And Professor says, "Let me get this wire through here." That's it. And Gilligan's struggling to get it off his hand, and he's not able to. And Professor says, "Now, Gilligan, I want you to hold on to this bowl." And Gilligan hides his hand behind his back and grabs the bowl. And he has trouble stabilizing it and holding it. And the professor says, "You should use two hands." And Gilligan says, "I can do it with one." And Skipper says, "Gilligan, he asked you to use both hands." And he said, "I can handle with one, see?" And Professor says, "I'm trying to get us off this island. Will you please help?" Unfortunately, Gilligan's hand is stuck to his rear end with the rubber, as we see there.
And we get another
And,
sped up image.
right. When Skipper lets go, Gilligan spins around. Now we cut to the girls who are working on the dial, or the dial. The phone is now complete, and they are now attempting to dial different phone numbers.
Now, would it make the most sense to just dial 0, or is this too new? Or is that too new for this?
No, zero was around back then, but zero was good in America, but not necessarily all countries.
Oh,
Sometimes you have to dial one, sometimes a series of numbers. Do they show if they start with zero here?
no, but I thought 0 was the universal operator.
Yeah, that was it. I think it just showed her. Let's see. Let me go back, and hopefully we won't
No,
get a warning.
well, they dial
But
like 5 numbers or so.
but if you look, I think she's putting her finger in the zero position. It is. That was the zero position, which was the very last digit, because they went from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. So right now she did just dial a zero. And well, we're about to start our second hour of incomplete calls. So they've been trying now for over an hour.
Yeah. You know what's the funniest thing about this whole scene? Is not at the time this makes sense there, but nowadays I've watched plenty of videos where it's called the generational test, and
Oh
they go,
yes,
"Here, I'll give you $20 if you could dial a number on this phone," and they hand them a rotary phone.
I know, and they don't know what to do with it. Right? Those. I think
Yeah,
those are hilarious. Those I love laughing at those videos.
yeah, they sit there trying to press the buttons and all that. See, I've used a rotary
Yes.
phone, so I know how it works.
Right.
I've actually used one, so
I don't know. I think that common sense should prevail and they'd be able to figure it out, but no, they don't. Most of those videos they can't figure it out, and it's hilarious. So now they finally get an English language, and they hear hello, and then they hear a female voice saying, "Where have you been? I've been calling all evening."
no, you gotta do it like this. Where have you been? I've been calling you all evening. I've
Right,
been
and
at
they're
a meeting, girl.
right. Well, except it's in a heavy, fake Cockney British accent. So they're supposed to be British. The conversation we're hearing right now. So apparently, we're assuming they've got the UK. So I've been out on a business meeting, girl. Hello, hello. So they cut in, hello, hello. And the female says, "A business meeting, and who's that with you?" And he says, "Don't be ridiculous, Sybil. There's no one with me." And they cut in again, "Hello, can you hear me?" And then the lady on the phone says, "Who was that, your parakeet?" And Marianne, "Oh, please, please help us." And the woman says, "I don't know who that is, but I assure you, I'm." Oh, the man says, "I assure you, I'm quite alone." "You must take me for a fool, Larry," she says. And he says, "Sybil." And Ginger says, "Hello, this is Ginger. I don't know who you are, young lady, but get off this line." So, "Oh, I don't know. You understand? We've been shipped." And then they hang up on her. And then
And they go.
Marianne says, "Wrecked."
I thought they said it together, but I got a question. Was that common for people like phone calls get interrupted by other people like that, or not, or is that a very rare thing back then?
Well, that's what was brought up earlier. We used to have party lines depending on where you were. A public line, if you were in a big city, chances are you did not have somebody cut in. But if you live in a rural area, like in a small town, then a lot of people back in the day did have party lines where people would cut in like that.
Okay.
Oh, please, somebody answer. So they are still trying to make phone calls and trying to get somebody. Wait till we get our phone bills, he says, of course. Phone ringing. And of course, now we get a scene of some extras here who are apparently making out. And the phone's ringing. Oh, wait till they might come in any minute, says Gilligan. And the guy answers the phone and just sets it aside.
He's getting blocked, all right.
Right. Back in the old days, that's what they would do, right? And Marianne says, "Oh, I think somebody answered." And he says, "Yeah. Hello, hello, it's Gilligan." But of course, the people can't hear him. Why don't they answer? Hello, are you sure they answered? Well, the phone stopped ringing. Sounds like he's gasping for breath. I sure wish I was there to help him.
Yeah, I bet he does.
Well, we missed the slide, but it shows the man just he grabs the receiver and just hangs up the phone again. So here we have with the professor and Skipper. They're making multicolored lines to match up for the telephone lines. Let's cross the yellow vine over the green vine. Right, the yellow vine over the green. And certainly Peru came in very clearly over the brown wire. That's right. It should mean that the Western Hemisphere should come in over the brown and the yellow over the green line. So they're trying to determine by the color of the telephone lines the location of which countries they lead to. Certainly the United States should come in very clearly, says the skipper. And
On
he
the
says
red,
in
white,
red, right, right, red, white, and blue. And the professor says that's not how it works. All right, but I sure hope you know what you're doing. We spend a lot of man hours putting these colored vines up. That's the only way to solve any problem. Logic. Almost sounds like Spock. Now, using the deductive form of reasoning, the wires used frequently should relate to the United States. Than any country. Sorry, it's hard to catch all the words, everybody. So that's why I recommend
yeah.
you watching
Well, he's
this.
talking about the United States has the most per capita per phone, and they
Right,
got
that.
to cross
Go ahead.
wire like all the other countries with the same proportional with the phones and blah blah blah.
Exactly. Now, the combination of that color with other colors should indicate a progressive ratio scale of telephones located in those countries. Truly very easy, isn't it? And of course, the skipper is totally confused and even turns his hat sideways. Easy for you, difficult for me, he says. Well, the important thing is to keep these vines from getting tangled while I figure out which color will guarantee us a telephone call to the United States. And of course, just as he says that, we have Gilligan running in. And of course, breaking the wires and getting them tangled up. Gilligan, stop, Gilligan. For goodness sake, we spend all this time trying to, I don't remember the exact words, but he said, we spent all this time to get these lines together to make a phone call. And Gilligan says, you'll never make it on a vine.
Yeah, he
But,
told him. Yeah, oh, there it is.
right.
Oh,
Why don't you use one of the telephone lines at the lagoon? So here we are back at the phone. Gilligan's attempting to make phone calls. And we got a female voice. Good afternoon, St. Louis Bijou Theater. And we have, this is back when you would call a theater and you got a live voice giving you the listings of the movies, which of
yeah.
course that hasn't been around in decades.
And she just had the like, I'm bored, repeating the same thing over and over again.
Exactly. And I want to point out a bit of trivia here about this actress. The lady on the phone at the St. Louis Bijou Theater is actress Ann Robinson, best known for playing the lead female role of Sylvia Van Buren in the 1953 George Powell movie, The War of the Worlds. So she was the star of The War of the Worlds.
Cool.
Today we're showing Carol Summer, which we will be covering War of the Worlds on our sci-fi horror stream. Today we're showing Carol Summers and Gregory Bryant in Dracula Goes Surfing. As a companion feature, we have Frankenstein Goes Surfing. And Gilligan said, "That's a good double feature." And then he realizes, "Thank you for calling the Bijou." Wait, hello, hello?
Yeah, those films sound worthy of cringe stock.
Yeah, it does, right? And of course, surfing was a big thing in pop culture in the 60s. There was a lot of surfing movies with Frankie and Annette and all that kind of stuff, Beef, Frank Bingo, and so forth. And now Gilligan's trying to remember what was that number he just called? So now he's going to try a different number. And here's another cameo I want to point out. This is Sandra Gould, and she played the replacement on the show Bewitched. She was the nosy neighbor across the street who had the husband, Abner, come look out the window. Mrs. What was her name? I know it'll come to me when I least expect it. I'm sure somebody in the chat will remember. But in Bewitched, originally they had a Mrs. Kravitz. That's it. They had Mrs. Kravitz the first or second season, but she had cancer and she passed away. And this is Sandra Gould who replaced her and played Mrs. Kravitz throughout the remaining 5 seasons because Bewitched lasted a total of 7 seasons. So yeah, this was a lady who played Mrs. Kravitz on Bewitched, the nosy neighbor across the street. Will you kindly deposit 10 cents for 3 minutes, sir? He says, an operator, got an operator. Now he's all excited. And she keeps repeating, will you kindly deposit? Of course, she's assuming it's a telephone booth. Will you kindly deposit 10 cents, sir?
Now, I got a question. Would she have known if he deposited 10 cents or not?
I don't know if that's just it. Let's go back a little bit. She is okay, from what they're portraying here, you notice how she has plugs where she unplugs telephone lines. That's what they used to use back in the old days when people used those old crank phones.
Yeah, the
I'm
old
sure you've seen them where right, they had a switchboard, but when then people in their houses they had those phones where they had the little crank next to it. But by the 1960s, they had modernized, and it was an electronic switchboard. So this is more of a joke because these type of operators they did exist in small towns, in some small towns. If you're in a very small town, but when Gilligan asked her, "Where are you?" she says, "This is a San Diego operator." So it's unlikely that they would have had a manual, old-fashioned switchboard operator like this. San Diego at the time, which is down in Southern California, would have had automated operators. But that's neither here nor there. But somehow, yeah, she's getting an indication that it's a telephone booth or that there's money due. So she says, "This is the San Diego operator. Will you kindly deposit a dime, sir?" And he's all excited. Now I got an operator in San Diego. And here comes Mr. Howell. "I'm sorry, sir. You'll have to deposit another dime," she says. And Gilligan, "Have you got another dime? Or you have a dime?" "No, no, I don't think so." "Least I have is a $20 bill," he says. "I could tuck it in." A lot of good that's going to do. And Gilligan says, "I've got a quarter." And she says, "Sir, if you give me your name and address, I'll send you 15 cents. And if you wish me to continue to keep this line open, you'll have to deposit the quarter." And then here comes the professor running in. And they all start running in and yelling and hollering, "Did you deposit the quarter?" And he says, "No, there's no place to put it." "Well, I'm sorry, I cannot keep this line open. We found
Now,
this. Go ahead.
I got a question. If they
Uh-huh.
will just like said this is an emergency, like can you hook us up to like like the police or the Navy or something? Would they been obligated to do that?
If they
It's
would have
like,
used the word emergency, there's a good chance. If they would have at least said, "This is an emergency. Can you please connect us to the police?" There's a good chance they may have gotten that. And then
okay,
the police, they could have gone from there. Once you get to, because if you'd have said, "Call the Navy, call the Coast Guard," the operator would probably think it was a prank call. So I'm guessing, would have been me, I would have said, emergency, I don't have money, our way of depositing money, but please contact the police. It's an emergency. Can you patch us through? And there's a good chance she would have. And then once you got the police, then you would be able to explain what's going on. That's
okay,
theoretical, in my opinion, that
yeah.
is.
I'm not sure if 911 existed back then.
No, it definitely did not.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that came about.
I'm guessing look it up at the 70s or 80s. There's probably somebody in the chat right now looking it up.
Oh,
But
I can look it up too.
yeah, back in those days when everybody called the operator and said, "Operator, give me the police." So here's where everybody's starting to yell at the same time. We found this telephone line and tapped into it. We're on a deserted island. There's no telephone booth. They're telling her.
Oh,
And then go ahead.
that's actually very close. The first call to 911 was placed in February of 1968.
Ooh, yeah.
And what we're this is
But
color.
the question was, when did 911 go nationwide? And also a word of note: in several foreign countries, it's 119.
Or is it Britain 999?
Oh, I don't know about Britain, but I know there's a lot of countries where it's 119. It depends on where you're at. There's probably several different, actually. Now that you think about it.
It'd be any person who had AT&T as a, as their phone company in 1968 could use 911 and it would attached. It'd be used as the emergency code throughout the
Well,
United.
back then, everyone had AT&T. That was before they were broken up, because they were broken up as being a monopoly back in the
Okay,
70s and 80s, and that's when they broke up and we got Sprint and all these other different companies.
okay. So in
So
1968
that
it
means the
became
911 did come about in the yes, that means 1968 is when 911 became active.
yep. It was first used or first got said in November of 1967, the FCC met with the American Telephone and Telegraph Company to find the means of establishing a universal emergency number that could be implemented quickly. Then in 1968, that's when 911 became the thing.
Yes, which makes sense.
Yep.
And
So,
also, what was good about 911, which we all know now, is it consolidated all the emergency services. So if you call 911, because back then you would say, "Operator, give me the police," or "Operator, give me the fire department." But now 911 consolidates that. So that why it's why now when you call 911, they say state your emergency. And if you say it's a fire, she automatically contacts 911, he or she. Or if you say I need a doctor, depending on that, or a police. So that was the reason why 911, everybody can get directly into a line, and it was consolidated into one phone number.
yeah, now they just passed a federal law here not too long ago. Go there. Some gal was taking her kid. Her and her kid were in a hotel. They're on vacation or they're visiting someone. That person. But anyhow, someone broke into the room and they stabbed the mother and all that.
Uh
And the
huh.
kid was frantically trying to call 911, but he did not understand that in a hotel to dial out of the hotel
Nine.
you had to press nine,
Uh
then
huh.
911. So the kid did not understand the concept, and his mother died out on the floor pretty much right in front of him. So now they passed a law that if you're dialing 911, that like these hotels and these things, they have to make it so you just press 911, not 9911.
Right. Exactly. There was also an incident, I think maybe in the 80s too. And if I remember, I believe it was in California. And maybe the Bay Area, I'm not sure. I don't want to be too specific and get it wrong. But there was a man in a phone booth, and he called 911, and he was being attacked, and they were trying to kill him. And he says, "Hey, they're trying to kill me. I need help. Whatever." But they took so long to get out there. They took like I don't know, a half hour or whatever to get out there. And then that's where they passed the law where they have to be more prompt and they have to take it more seriously. Because I remember that was a pretty big thing that hit the news nationwide as well.
Okay.
And then here
Uh,
we had now modern day Oakland or San Francisco, California, where you call 911 and they put you on hold. And that's no joke. Go ahead, Gorilla.
well, we got three chats here.
Thank you.
Basil says not a good idea to let Gilligan stir, and
Yeah,
Boomer here says Mrs. Kravitz. And welcome
Mrs.
Cody
Kravitz.
guy. Welcome Cody guy.
Good to see you there. I'm glad you could join us.
All right, we can continue.
So the opera. Okay, so they're all. Here's what they say: "We're on a deserted island. There is no telephone booth." And she says, "Why do I get all the nuts?" And then she hangs it up like that. So that's the end of Mrs. Kravitz's cameo. And they're like, "Oh no!" Listen, we reached her and we'll reach somebody else, says the professor. I don't think we're going to have more chances today, Professor. It looks like the wind's coming in. Oh, it looks like another storm and more stock footage. So we have some rain and heavy wind coming in. There's a bad storm coming in, they say. We got to get indoors. And there we go. And we got a little bit of stock footage here of the storm
Yeah, when
and
did?
the aftermath. Go ahead.
Oh, never. Well, I was gonna say, never mind. We didn't quite at that part yet.
Now, notice, Gorilla, there's that same structure in the back on the right hand side again, like there was at the beginning of the episode. Funny how it's
Yeah, that's
back
a,
again, huh?
they reused the set.
Right, the same set. They just added a little bit more wood on the ground and stuff, more debris. So here's after the storm, and it's daytime. So and also they shot this on the outside, like they did the very beginning of the episode, because you can tell this is natural sunlight, not a soundstage. And we have Gilligan running out to check the damage, and he realizes that the telephone cable is gone. And he calls for the skipper and the professor. Here they come, and he says the cable is gone. And the skipper says, "What could have happened to the cable?" And the professor explains, "Well, the first storm drove it into the lagoon, and he says the second storm must have pulled it out again." And Skipper says, "Well, what are we going to do now? There isn't much we can do," says the professor. "But I tell you this much: with the bare telephone line exposed to the salt water, it will be." He says basically, with the bare telephone lines, that means they'll eventually send a crew out to repair the telephone line. And the professor says, "We will be." Our skipper says, "We'll be rescued. The phone company will send a repair crew. We'll be rescued in a few months." And Gilligan says, "Oh no." And they say, "What's the matter?" And he says, "Well, when the storm started, I didn't want the wires to get wet." "And what did you do, Gilligan?" "I wrapped them up nice and dry with the rubber the professor made." And he tries to, and of course, Skipper tries to hit Gilligan with his hat. And he says, "No, wait, Skipper. Look at it this way. I gain a new chapter in the Good Ginger Grant story." He says,
They go
"Now,
now.
Skipper." Right,
Now I
now,
got
Skipper. Go ahead.
no. I got a question. How good
Yes.
could that rubber be that the ocean salt water won't erode it and wash it away here after like a month or so?
Well, not only that, though, but that's a good point. How good is that rubber? What if that's the same rubber they used to try to fix the minnow? Or did the professor perfect it? Make it now it's better now? Because remember they tried. Remember they tried a homemade rubber, and remember it ended up destroying the minnow. It ended up pretty much falling apart. So now we're assuming it's a better rubber compound.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing it eventually wash away there because they're natural latex rubber. They're they're less than natural is way better than the stuff we've made in the last 60 years.
Latex. Well, latex is a different kind. Latex and also latex does deteriorate definitely in the air, but rubber underwater may last longer. That's hard to tell. But with the salt water, that might eat it away. So that's another thing, and this I'm not an expert on. So Gilligan says, "Now, Skipper." So now he hits him,
Yeah.
and we have Gilligan with his little goggles, and he's been down looking for the cable, trying to see maybe that if it was inside the lagoon still. And it's got to be out. And he says that he couldn't find the telephone line, and the skipper says it's got to be. And Gilligan says, "I tell you, it isn't." Oops, let me go back. He says that's the 62nd time I've been down there. And the skipper says, "Well, what comes after 162? 163."
Yeah. Now, I think what do it like? Too bad they couldn't have had like a filming location right off the beaches of California there, where they could have filmed like Gilgy going out in the actual ocean to look for it.
Which they could have done, but the reason why they did this and the whole reason why they built the lagoon, it's a more controlled environment. When you go out to shoot on location, you've got to worry about people in the background. There's going to be people at the beach swimming and all that kind of stuff. So that's the reason why they built the lagoon set. They get to step right, I mean, literally step right outside the sound stage, which is where the lagoon stage was, or the lagoon set, and then film there. So it saved a lot of time. And by saving time, that means saving a lot of money, which was everything when they're filming TV shows, is saving that money.
Okay. All right. I'll be
So
right back.
go for it. So Skipper says, or Gilligan says, I've been down 162 times. And Skipper says, and what comes after 162? And he says 163. 163. And of course, I don't remember every word verbatim. I'm trying to remember. But basically, he's telling Gilligan that he wants him to go back. And he says, do I have to? And then Gilligan looks, and he sees the other castaways looking at him like this, which means, yeah, I guess I'm going back. There you go. There it is. 63 coming up, he says. And he heads back to the lagoon, dives in, and goes to search for the cable again. And we get our closing credits and our wonderful, fantastic closing scene.
Yeah.
And since Gorilla and I were just talking about it, I'm going to point it out. I pointed out again. I mean, I pointed this out before, but I'm going to go ahead and point it out again because this was something we were just mentioning. If you've already heard this before, I apologize. If this is your first time, well, then that's the reason why I'm pointing it out. But here's where we have our usual closing scene where the castaways are on the beach. And the camera pans out slowly. There it is. Now, if you look at the top left-hand side of your screen, if you enlarge the window, you will see a big dome, shaped like a dome. You'll see it's around. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow. Let me see. There we go. You'll see a dome. It's right here. This is the sound stage where they film the interiors of the show, the huts and things like that. So that's why you'll commonly hear me refer to the outside scene here, which is the beach, which you can tell by the natural sunlight, where they built the lagoon set here. And then all they had to do was step right inside this big sound stage right here. And this is where they shot the interior scenes. So that's what I meant by why they didn't go to the actual, like Santa Monica Beach and do filming, because it would save them much more time by just being able to step back and forth here. Over to the right here, where my arrow is pointing, was actually a parking lot. And that's where the cast would park their cars. So behind these trees here, there was at least one episode where I pointed out where it showed them on the beach, and you could see a blue Cadillac parked in the back right here, which belonged to the skipper, Alan Hale Jr. Yeah. So basically, over to the left here was the sound stage where they filmed the interiors. Over to the right here, it was a parking lot where the cast would park their cars.
Yeah, I didn't remember the Cadillac one, but I do remember there was some guy in the background.
We did have that episode too, where there was a man in the background. And we have of course, our closing song. That's another thing too. TV shows don't have opening songs and closing songs anymore, and that's terrible. It was really imaginative back then, creative, and it really helped bookend shows. And I know, but that's my opinion. And I know probably the younger generation could do without them. But I like back in the days when they had, like with Star Trek, they had a beginning theme and they had the ending. I mean, that's how all shows used to do it, but they abolished that. They just don't have it anymore, and it's sad. There it is. That's Gerald Fried. That's the name I was trying to remember earlier when we were talking about the guy who did Star Trek. Alexander Courage was the main composer on Star Trek who left, and then Gerald Fried filled in a lot of the background music. And he also did the same thing for Gilligan's Island here once John Williams left. And as a reminder, Gerald Fried passed away just a few months ago. I did a tribute on my channel. If you look, you'll find it. He did the famous fight scene, by the way, in A Mock Time, where Kirk fights Spock. And Jill was able to somehow play that without getting a copyright warning. I don't know how she did it, but good for her.
I think that's one thing that CBS really kind of let slide. It's like it's not really worth their time to sit there copy strike every single person who plays the song, or else they'd be copy striking a lot.
Well, yeah, but you've seen like with Gilligan's Island here, there's been some times where I'll just show like 1 or 2 seconds and they give me a warning. But she played at least 30 seconds of that Star Trek and no
No,
problem. So yeah,
no,
good for that.
it might overload their bots. If they hit every single person who plays the Muck Time theme.
Well, yeah, but that's not going to, the frequency of somebody using it, that's not going to stop them. No, that would just be all the more they would be warning. But for some reason, she bypassed it. So maybe they just, I think it's probably because she's prettier than I am, is what I figured. That's probably what it is.
No, it could be something that they allow free use of. Well, the few things they allow free use of, or it might be they've lost so many that like people talking about the music and all that, and they probably lost claims for that or something. There might be a reason why that particular song does not get hit there from behind the scenes.
That is always possible as well.
Yeah, because there's some people that might have played it and they fought the hell out of it all the way, then the CBS lost it, and now it could be under free use.
Okay, and how are we doing on the chat?
Oh, I got my screen here a second.
I appreciate that. So we conclude our first episode of tonight's show, and we'll be covering the next second episode here soon. As soon as we cover catch up with the chats.
Yeah, we're all caught up.
Oh, sweet. Then I need to get caught up. Let me get everything ready here. So now we're going to be covering season 2, episode 18 of Gilligan's Island, and I'll introduce that as well. Let me get it queued up.
Yeah. And I won't do any spoilers here, but this is one of the shows that I love. I love this, where the whole premise of it is kind of stupid, But this is the kind of episode a lot of actors love because it takes them out of their original roles and they get to play something different than they normally do. A lot of actors love that when they can play something different inside the show that they're contracted to play in.
I agree, and so did the cast. Yeah. In interviews afterwards, they asked the cast what their favorite episodes were, and they said the Dream episode. So yeah, totally, yeah. That makes sense.
But like this one here, it's the whole premise seems kind of stupid, But they did it like the Blues Brother, where everything was so over the top and outrageous that you couldn't but help laughing. Then you got the common trope. I don't know when it started, but the person partially. This is why. If you don't hear the full conversation, don't think of it where they overhear something and they think it's one thing, but they're talking about something else because they did not hear the full conversation. I just love that in episodes.
Yes, and a perfect example that comes to mind when you say that is Three's Company. That entire series was based on people hearing things the wrong way. And then the whole episode would be based on that. And it wasn't until the very end they were like, no, this is what I really meant. Oh, it's like, and I like that. I'm not knocking Three's Company. I like it. It's one of my favorite shows. But that entire show was based on misunderstandings.
Okay, then that gets old. You can't do it like the whole. It has to be like like this here once in a while.
Once in a while. But they managed to get away with it, and they were still funny.
Yeah. All right, I'll be back again here since we're in between episodes here.
Cool, go for it. And that reminds me, I forgot the intro, so let's do that.
Yeah, I got
to get ahead of myself. Okay. So, as I was saying, we are now covering season 2, episode 18, "The Postman Cometh." This episode aired on January 20th, 1965, and the description is as follows. The bachelors on the island try to cheer Marianne up after they hear on the radio that her boyfriend is marrying someone else. However, Marianne misreads their intentions and concludes that she is dying from eating poisonous mushrooms. So let's continue here with the opening titles, as we do usually, and we have our beached minnow here with our heroes and introduction of our cast. And just like the last episode, it opens up as a lagoon. But this time, and we have Sherwood Schwartz as the producer, and Jack Arnold producing again. Notice, I'm going to point this out. Another thing that was fantastic and wonderful about these older shows is you'll notice they were written by one, two, you might have a third person doing a script polish, not an entire writer's room like they're demanding now, where they want Hollywood to hire an entire room of writers, and everybody gets paid whether they're working or not, or whether their material is being used or not. So I hate to get off tangent, but I'm totally against that idea of hiring a writer's room, because all that means is everything's going to get worse and worse. Everything was much more original, funny, and genuine when we had a writer or two.
Yeah. Can I just say they cleaned up that lagoon pretty nice there, and those trees grew back pretty fast.
Yeah,
but
they did, didn't they? Well, they've had a week, I guess, so I guess everything grows fast.
yeah, it's that tropical sun. It does wonders for you.
Absolutely.
But anyhow, we got 3 chats here real quick. Scurvy says hello to Cody Guy. Scurvy says, "Come knock on my door.
I've been waiting for you.
I don't know the rest of the song.
Where the kisses are hers and his, but I don't want to get copyright to. I'll just say it that way.
Well, the copyright owners can go. Oh wait, this is Gilligan's Island.
No.
Go. Oh, Greg, you're so serious. Oh, and Scurvy says, "Hey, Euler." All right, now we're all caught up.
All right, so we got our writers here: Herbert Finn and Alan Dinehart, directed by Leslie Goodwins. So, and then I'm sorry to be a nitpicker, guys, but we had, like I said, this lagoon set filmed outside. You could tell by the natural sunlight, and I'm guessing by the appearances with the haze, it may have been early in the morning. Now, remember, right on the left-hand side of the screen there, on the other side of that, of those trees, was the Hollywood freeway. So they had to, all their outside shooting, they had to reserve it for when it wasn't rush hour. Otherwise, the microphone would literally pick up cars honking and traffic. So they had to do a lot of their outside shooting either early in the afternoon before rush hour. Early in the morning before rush hour, or in the afternoon after rush hour. And I'm guessing by the appearance of the sky and the haze, this was filmed in the morning. And also, it was, again, like I said, it's natural sunlight. But then when we cut to the next scene here, we've got Marianne and Gilligan, who are on the beach, supposedly, right there on the lagoon. But of course, you could tell now they're inside the soundstage. We don't have the sunlight. This is the studio and stage lighting. And we have Marianne with a note. Oh, I got to turn on the subtitles. Bear with me here.
Oh, oops, I forgot this. Subtitles, pop, subtitles.
I know, right? Warning. I'm glad I remembered before they started talking.
Yeah,
there we go.
Here, OG says, "Hey, Scurvy."
Okay, so we have Marianne, and it looks like she's rolling up a piece of paper. Gilligan's got a bottle. Gilligan's covering his eyes. And she said, "What are you doing, Gilligan?" And he says, "Against the law to read anybody else's mail." So she's basically writing a note and putting it in a bottle. And he says, "Okay, it'll go out in the 2:00 tide, thank you." So it's a joke, as like saying the mail will be picked at 2:00. And he says he not only gets the letter, so Gilligan is explaining that he not only gets a letter every week, but he gets a nickel back in the envelope, speaking about the deposit.
Well, if you really don't think that he gets the letter every week, do you think they'd send some rescue notes with the coordinates?
Right, and that they've got enough bottles to last every week, I guess, supposedly, right?
Well, maybe Gilligan's a heavy soda drinker.
Right, that's true. And that's another thing, too, by the way, since I noticed I moved to Arizona here, no California redemption tax. We don't have to pay the deposits and all this garbage, so it's such a relief. So here we have Gilligan at the lagoon, and he tosses it in the water. There we go. And we cut back to the huts, and we have the skipper toiling away busily, pedaling. And Skipper asks him, what is he doing? And he says, "I'm recharging." I'm glad they showed this. And I want to point this out, is I'm glad they showed this, because this will remind us, for those of us that have forgotten, or for anybody out there who did not or were not here when we originally covered the episode. We had an episode where the batteries went dead on the radio. And a lot of people who have not watched Gilligan's Island lately or don't remember, That's one of the main running jokes. They say, ah ha ha, it never made sense. How does that radio always work after all that time? Well, they established during the first season that the batteries in the radio were rechargeable. And the professor designed a way of them charging with coconuts, water, a piece of metal, and some wires and friction. And in that episode, they had the castaways all lined up on the either side of that table, and they had the coconuts, and they were stirring water inside the coconuts to cause friction to create a charge, which does make sense, and it is possible. But apparently, they've refined it now to where it's just one device that one person pedals. They still have the coconuts with the wire running through the coconuts, but that's what Skipper explains. He says he's recharging the batteries on the radio. So I'm glad they're reminding us, the viewers, that they're able to recharge that radio, because that's, like I said, a lot of things. That's something that a lot of people seem to forget. Would you mind turning the radio on to see if it works? Says the skipper. So Gilligan turns on the radio, and the voice over the radio says, "And now here's a social note. By the surprise elopement of Sybil Whitworth, Higginbottom is said to come from a small town near Horner's Corners, which of course is fictitious, Kansas. And Marianne happens to be also from Kansas." And Gilligan said, "Did he say Horace Higginbottom?" "That's right. Why, you know him," says the skipper. And he said, "That's Marianne's boyfriend." Go ahead.
Bob, just a sec. Herc says, "Can just pop in for a moment and I have to go. I wanted to say hi and support Pop." Well,
Thank you.
welcome.
Good to see you.
You have a good night there, Herc. Thank you for stopping by and saying hi.
Yes, Herc. Take care, and I appreciate it.
And welcome, Suzanne. Welcome. Pop, hello. Can't stay. My battery is almost dead. Oh, that sucks, Suzanne.
I'm sorry to hear that, Suzanne, but I posted a link, Suzanne, to your fundraiser in the chat. Everybody, please, if you get a chance or the opportunity, if you're able to, please donate to Suzanne. She's in a kind of a pinch right now, in a bind, and she needs help. And you'll find the link in the chat. It should be posted at the top.
Hey, Pop, can you put it in our group or something on Twitter so I can have the link?
Yes, I will do that. I'll do it after the stream, but I will do that. I'm going to post it in our group, but I'm also going to post it publicly on Twitter, and I'll post it on my Facebook as well, Suzanne, if you can hear that. So good luck. I'm sorry your battery's running dead, but we're going to do the best we can to help you out, Suzanne. It's the least I could do. Everybody help me out. So, yeah, that's the first thing I'm going to do, is do my best to help out someone else. So Gilligan says that's Marianne's boyfriend when they heard the name over the radio. And Skipper says, "What?" And now they're listening. Now they're saying that basically that Marianne's boyfriend is marrying another girl, for goodness sakes, and doing that to our poor little Marianne. And Gilligan says maybe he's trying to make her jealous. And I want to point out too that we're going to realize, I know this is kind of out of sequence. Well, it's not out of sequence, but time-wise, in the timeline, that after we cover the 3 seasons of Gilligan's Island, we're going to cover the movies. And in the first movie is Rescue from Gilligan's Island. And according to that movie, Marianne returns to Kansas, returns to her old fiance, and attempts to get married. I'm not going to give away what happens because I don't want to spoil that movie if nobody's seen it, but we'll cover it when it gets there. Supposedly, so that's telling us that Marianne does have more than one boyfriend. And now we have this Professor Will Skipper. What's the decision? Well, again, they're talking about now that somebody needs to tell Marianne the news. Well, Gilligan was just about to volunteer. Once again, of course, they're going to volunteer Gilligan. And he says, "No, I'm not." And they said, "Oh, yes, you are." And he says, "Oh, no." He says, I can't tell her that some girl stole her boyfriend." Yes. Under her nose with her back turned. Well, it's anatomically impossible. I'm sorry, like I said, guys, it skips every few seconds, so I can't cover everything they say. And I don't have my memory is not as good as Jill's, so I tend to not be able to remember every little word.
Well, Gilligan said you saw it right from under his nose and behind your back.
That's it. Thank you. That's why I'm glad you're here, Grill, to help me out. You got better memory than I do, sir.
No, not by much.
And the, and the professor says, well, he should have freedom of choice. Remember, they did say boyfriend and not fiance, so we're assuming it was nothing really serious. And he said, well, then Horace can tell her. And Gilligan tries to leave. Wait a minute, Gilligan. All right, Professor. So they're already, of course, still arguing who's going to tell her. Now, all those in favor of Gilligan telling Marianne,
Oh,
raise your right hand.
oh,
Go
they
ahead,
said they're
Gilligan.
going to do it the Democratic way vote.
Right. And of course, then he immediately says Gilligan. And all favor of Gilligan telling her, raise your right hand. And of course, they both do. So Gilligan's immediately, once again, outvoted. There you are, Gilligan, 2-1.
And then he makes the joke. Well, if that's how democracy works, I'm going to be a Republican.
Right.
This is a perfect example of what the difference between a democracy and a republic is. Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Now, a republic is two wolves and an armed sheep contesting the vote.
And there they are. Of course, Gilligan's not happy with the decision, but Skipper's pushing him out the door and say, on your way, little buddy.
Yeah.
There it
Susan,
is. There it is. That's what you were saying. Go ahead.
I don't think that's Captain Finity unless he has a second account that's Peter, not Finity.
It is. That's Captain Finity.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, he was on last night as Peter.
I did not know that.
Yep.
Oh yeah, how Oiler Greg here says good night, Suzanne, and Suzanne says hello, Greg. Captain Finity, hello. Boomer says hello to Susan. Susan says Phantom, hello. Here's Nemesis Eden's channel for gaming and all that.
Definitely, everybody, check out Nemesis Eden's channel. Wonderful guy.
You just had a bunch of glitched ones here not too long ago, showing different glitches and stuff. And Greg says vote Armed Sheep Party in 24.
Right, either way, don't trust either one, right?
Hey, vote for that one guy that is running that YouTuber there, Brandon Herrera's. He's talking about your district unless he's on the other side of Texas. He's running for the House.
I'm not sure who that is.
But
I don't monitor that closely.
Yeah, he's a big 2A advocate. He's a big 2A advocate. He's
2A. Hold on, 2A advocate.
Yeah, Second Amendment.
Oh, Second Amendment. Oh, I didn't know what you meant by 2A, but okay, Second Amendment. Gotcha.
Yeah, he's primarying the rhino that's in his district.
Primarying the rhino?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of that term.
You never heard of Republicans in name only? The rhino?
No, I don't. No, I guess not.
Oh, that term's been around since the 80s.
I don't get much into politics. I just watch the end results and the failures that they do.
Yeah.
But all the other stuff, I don't get too deep into it because I just find it very upsetting because I know that us, the citizens, we don't really have control over anything, so I don't bother. So here's where Gilligan, this is what you were talking about, Gorilla. This is where Gilligan says, if that's a democratic way, and of course we miss his line where he says about the republic. And we have Marianne cooking, listening to the radio. And she's listening to her soap opera on the radio. And you can hear the voice of the announcer man on the radio. Now, once again, it's time for radio's most popular dramatic series, Old Dr. Young. Eileen Frobisher had been admitted for a checkup. Unbeknownst to her, her x-rays revealed something. Meanwhile, in another part of the hospital, old Dr. Young is talking to his son, young Dr. Young. I've got to be careful reading these aloud because I've done this before and got a copyright warning.
Oh, it's just a soap opera. That sounds like
I know, but last time I remember.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be better on TV than it would be on the radio.
Well, back then, remember, everything started with radio before they invented TV. Then when they invented TV, we had both. So we did have radio shows, Like even like when I was a kid this is the 70s. I used to listen to CBS Radio Mystery Theater at night. It was like a horror thriller radio show at night. I used to listen to it in bed. It was not a TV show. It was strictly a radio show, and I loved it. So that's why I'm kind of a fan of those old radio shows. So Marianne is listening intensely to the soap opera, and we have Gilligan coming in. Old Dr. Young's son, the young and lovely. Of course, the narrator continues. Eileen Frobisher must be told about her x-rays. But father, should we tell her now? Says the son. And Gilligan stops and he's listening. And right now, if that is my duty, then I shall do it. Son, you are walking the wrong way. Gilligan's hesitating. He doesn't want to give her the bad news. So that's why he's stopping and he's listening to the guy on the radio. And the voice on the radio says, because I cannot just burst into her room, that I cannot do. You will have to assign someone else to do the job, just like what was happening with Gilligan, the professor, and Skipper. Son, be a man. Gilligan starts to leave, and then he hears the voice, son, be a man. And Gilligan turns around. Remember the Hippocratic Oath? And he comes back. Yes, father, you're always right. And Gilligan decides, okay, I will do it. And he starts approaching Marianne once again to give her the bad news. But then the voice over the radio says, I'll tell her tomorrow. And then Gilligan immediately turns around and leaves. And Marianne, as you see, she did not notice that Gilligan was even there in the first place. So she still does not know. She's just tasting her food there. Gilligan goes back and tells them that he did not tell her. And of course, they're upset and disappointed. Well, you see, I wasn't sorry, I can't read all the text and everything, but he said I wasn't arguing. All I was saying was, you see. And they're asking him why he didn't tell her. And he says, the professor says, I can see I'll have to tell her myself. And the professor leaves. And Skipper says, it's a good thing he went to tell her because I want to tell you, he beat me by that much. It's like, right, Skipper. So Skipper basically says Skipper says if a professor hadn't went to tell her, that he would have done it. It's like, oh, right. He's the one that was hesitating from the beginning.
I call BS on that.
I know. Right, exactly. Right. It's easy to say that after the professor leaves. And Gilligan says, oh, okay, well, I could still catch him. And he says, no, thanks a lot, little buddy. So now we're back to Marianne, and she's at the point now listening to this soap opera saying, and the announcer says, and so we conclude another chapter of the story of old Dr. Young. And she says, oh, and she turns off the radio. And she does touch the correct knob. Sometimes you watch these episodes and they turn the wrong knob. There's two of them. The one on the left is volume, and the one on the right is tuning. And sometimes you'll see them reach for the tuning knob when they're turning the radio on or off. But sorry, that's because I'm a nitpicker. And she continues sobbing and goes back to her cooking and tasting her food. And the professor comes in and says, say, and he tries to break it. He's trying to figure out a way of giving her the news. And he says, oh, Marianne. And she says, yes. And he says, there's something I've got to tell you. And she says, there is? He says, well, yes, there is. And now she's talking about the soap opera. She's got her mind on the soap opera. And she says, I wouldn't trade places with her for anything else in the world. And of course, the professor's a little confused at first. He's not sure what she's talking about. And she says, Eileen Frobisher, the poor girl on the radio. And that's when the professor realizes, oh, I'm trying to remember exactly how they introduced the what she was cooking, but she says basically she's cooking mushrooms.
Yeah, she's pretty much making a mushroom soup and all that. And he goes, and this is when he after giving all that crap to Gilligan, he
Chicken's out.
Okay, there's the term. I was gonna use another term, but Gilligan's Island. But he just tells her, "Oh, some mushrooms are poisonous. You can't tell which ones are which."
Yes. he says, you got to be careful. And she's about what? The species, he says. It can make you quite ill. And she says, poisonous? And he says, you've got to get rid of those. So he says, basically, if you have poisonous mushrooms, you've got to get rid of those. And then he leaves. And she's like, okay, now she's worried. And of course, it looks like this because we're right in the middle of an edit. And voice, they're saying, it's a good thing you didn't say anything to Marianne. That'd be all wrong, says Ginger. Well, certainly there's only one thing. So they're talking to each other saying that they have not told Marianne yet, but they've got to figure out a way to do it. When she hears about Horace Higginbottom, only one thing can make a girl forget a man, says Ginger. Another man. Marianne needs a dream man, she says. Someone very exciting to just come along and sweep her off her feet. Well, Mr. Howell, there's 3 eligible bachelors on the island. Now, when she says that, of course, she speaks of the professor, Skipper, and Gilligan. With 3 attractive bachelors vying for her attention. So she's hinting at, with all thoughts of Horace, she's basically saying that if these 3 bachelors, which is the Skipper, Professor, and Gilligan, come calling and show some attention towards Marianne, that she'll forget, and all thoughts about Horace will vanish. Horace Higginbottom, that is. And Professor says, I've never shown the slightest romantic interest in Marianne. And Ginger says, Professor, a few lessons at my private charm school, and you'll just captivate her. And Skipper says, I've been acting like her big brother. I can't act like her boyfriend now. And Mr. Howell says, Captain, I'm going to take you in hand. And Gilligan says, it's a nasty trick to play on my... Or he says, Mr. Howell says, it's a nasty trick to play on my wife. But see la guerra. I'm not sure if I'm sure I'm butchering that.
Right.
So here we have Gilligan practicing with Ginger. Your hair with the light shining on it. And she says, oh, Gilligan. Oh, actually, that's right. He's practicing on Mrs. Howell. And your eyes are limpid pools of indigo blue. Shell-like ears and pearly teeth. And she says, oh, Gilligan. I'm sorry, Mrs. Howell, but I'm improving, he says. This time I got as far as the nose before I blew it.
That was a great pun. No pun intended.
Right, exactly.
And he goes, you gotta woo her, make her romantic, not take inventory.
Right. Now, can't you use a more romantic voice, she says. Marianne, you're peachy keen. And he tries to sound better, but he sounds with a very rough voice. And she's not asthmatic. So it sounds like he's having trouble breathing. So she's trying to get him to speak more romantic. Now, we'll have to try another approach. We'll pattern you after somebody else. Now, let me see. Oh, I have it. And I hate to do this once again, guys, but I apologize. But I have another reference to us old geezers. Charles Boyer was another actor famous back in the day. So if you're wondering, who is this? That's what Charles Boyer means.
Yeah. Don't apologize, Pop, because I had absolutely no idea who it was, but I just assumed someone famous in the 60s.
I know. I figured you'd probably... Yeah, that's what I was guessing. So as well, I'll kind of help decipher for people that are older and younger.
Yeah, don't apologize, because a lot of these references go over my head.
And we have Mr. Howell down on one knee. Let me count the ways I love thee to the depth and breadth and height that my soul can reach. And he's trying to teach Skipper how to talk to Marianne. Oh, Mr. Howell, I feel so silly, says Skipper. Well, I'm just trying to show you how to act, that's all. I know, but Mr. Howell, I can't recite poetry. He says, it's my image. He says, your image, just exactly what is your image? And he says, well, I've always figured myself as a cowboy. And then Mr. Howell says, "Well, you are built like the Ponderosa," looking at his rear end.
What's the
And
Ponderosa?
I was just gonna say that the Ponderosa is a reference to at the time a popular series Bonanza that was on the air. That the Ponderosa was the name of the ranch that the Cartwright family lived on.
Okay.
And Skipper basically continues saying that he always felt like a cowboy, the big, strong, silent type. And this is a good reference because Alan Hale, the actor, actually cameoed and did guest appearances on television westerns at the time. So he actually did appear on Gunsmoke, Bonanza, and several other series. In fact, he was filming a western when he was approached with the role of the skipper. He was out in the middle of nowhere, and they wrote out and said, "Hey, here's a potential script if you want to do a reading." I covered that in the first one or two reviews we did when we covered how each of the cast members came together for casting, and I covered that how Alan Hale was discovered, and yeah, he was originally a cowboy, playing a cowboy in another movie. And he says, I've always thought that I should be a cowboy." And of course, we missed some of the line. I'm trying to go back here. I always thought I should be a cowboy. And he says, "Somewhere there breathes a horse." That's what I wanted to catch it there. "I'm somewhere there breathes a horse who's glad you're not," is pretty much what Mr. Howell says. And Skipper says, "Come on, Mr. Howell." And he says, "How about Marshall Dillon, which is the cowboy from the show Bonanza?" I'm sorry, Gunsmoke. I'm sure that there's people out there in the chat wanting to kick me right now because I'm getting these names wrong. But
Well,
Marshall
Bonanza
Dillon was the main.
Gunsmoke thing difference. That'll
I
get
know,
me.
I know. Guys, right? It's getting the names right. It's like I try to at least be somewhat accurate. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If I make any mistakes, you guys in the chat or you Gorilla, you're welcome to correct me.
All right. Let's catch up on chat real quick.
Thank you.
And Susan says, "Have a great stream, Pop." And Peter here
Bye-bye,
says,
Susan. Have a
"2 a.m."
great night.
And Other Greg says, "Radio shows, old time entertainment." Yeah, we actually covered a few radio shows on the Walton Street reviews there. Oh,
Yeah,
just says,
considering that took place during considering that took place in the Depression era, that's all they had back then was radio and no television.
yeah. And OG here says, "Dragonet and other television shows started out as radio programs." Cool.
Correct. Yes,
And
a lot of stuff started out, and movies. The Lone Ranger, a lot of that stuff started out as like we were talking about last night. The Shadow, things like that. They all started out as radio shows, and then some of them were made into TV series, some into movies. Go ahead.
Boomer says, "Wild Wild West."
Oh, I love the Wild Wild West, and I will be showing a clip of Wild Wild West where Alan Hales Jr. here guest starred. There was. I'll make this quick. For anybody who's seen the Wild Wild West, it starred Robert Conrad and it co-starred. Um, I'll get back to him. I'm trying to think of too many things at once. But the co-star of Wild Wild West unfortunately had heart problems, and he suffered a couple of heart attacks while filming the show. Ross Martin, that was his name. Anyway, there was a point where Ross Martin had a stroke or a heart attack, and he had to leave temporarily. So one episode, they brought in Alan Hale Jr. here to stand in as the guest star to work alongside the character James West. And I'm going to be showing a clip from that because there is a reference in that to Gilligan's Island, which I thought was very, very cool. Sorry, go off a tangent there. Are there more chats?
Just one here. Boomer
Right.
here says, "Ross Martin."
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. I knew. Sometimes I'll get stuck on a name, but if I think about it long enough, I'll remember because I'm a big fan of Wild Wild West. I have it on my server. Oh, I wish I could cover it on the streams. It's just I don't know if it's popular enough for people to want to tune in.
I'd watch it.
It's great. It's like a Western James Bond because he's got gadgets and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool. And he's got like these villains. What's that?
I'd watch it, but I'm one of those people that I'll give any show a chance.
Yeah, it's good. And he has like these every week. He's got a different villain he's got to go against. And then come to think of it, they do favor outdoor types, says Mr. Howell. Exactly. They like men that talk about riding the range. Skipper's still stuck on cowboy and all that sort of thing. So he starts acting like a cowboy here, of course, walking like this, bow-legged and everything. Okay, bravo, Billy. Head her off at the pass, says Mr. Howell.
Yeah. And see, that's where I said that they take everything to the extreme there with like with Skipper's walk and stuff.
Yes, very exaggerated. Oh, and here's something I want to mention too. I know this is not really related, but have you seen the stereotypes where they always show cowboys walking bull-legged? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just what Skipper just did.
Exactly. Do you know why the cowboys were? I mean, they
Because they're
were
always riding
bull-legged. A lot of
horses, and that's how their legs are stuck like that.
nope. It's because lack of calcium. They weren't. The problem is they weren't getting enough calcium because for many centuries, actually, for the longest time, people were not intaking enough calcium, and they were being born with bull legs. Calcium is the ingredient to help strengthen your bones, obviously. So without calcium, you're going to end up growing up bull-legged. That's why the public schools started supplying milk in the school lunch programs, was to supply the kids with calcium. By the way, the effect of not getting calcium and getting bull-legged is called rickets. So in order to eliminate rickets, the public school program came out with the giving milk to kids every single day of the week, and that's what pretty much almost eliminated rickets. So if you watch, you can still watch like older movies and TV shows where some of the actors had severe bull legs, like Sammy Davis Jr. was one, and like Leslie Nielsen from the Naked Gun movies, he was another one that had bull legs. But that's only because when they were young, they didn't get enough calcium. So that's why the truth of why cowboys were bull-legged.
Cool.
Okay, so Mr. Howell says, "Okay, bravo, Billy. Head her off at the pass." They went that away as Skipper heads out. There we go. Good evening, Marianne. And here we are, the professor trying to practice with Ginger. "Oh, you look very healthy tonight," he says. And then she says, "Oh, that wasn't much like Cary Grant, was it?" Of course, referring to the actor. "And it wasn't even very much like General Grant," she says. "I'll never be able to learn this," as a professor. And she says, "Now pretend that I'm." She says, "Now pretend." I can't remember who says it, but I guess it's him. "Now pretend that I'm Cary Grant." No, she says it. I'm sorry. So it's a reversal of roles. She says, "Pretend I'm Cary Grant." "You?" And she says, "Yeah, pretend that I'm tall, charming." And she says, "and masculine." But he says, "I'll pretend you're tall and charming, but you've got the wrong kind of load." I know that's kind of a slang for the 60s. She says, "Now, Carrie is the kind of man who sweeps a girl off her feet."
Hey,
Go
welcome,
ahead.
anti-derivative Jill.
"Hello, Joe. Good to see you. I'm glad you can make it."
And she said, ironic that cowboys didn't get enough milk.
Exactly. In fact, they didn't drink it. They didn't drink at all. It was mostly water and other things. But back then, they didn't realize the importance. They didn't know what calcium was. So they didn't. There was no understanding of it. That was something that we just happened to discover over time. So here's where Ginger says he would take her in his arms like this, and he'd whisper in her name. He'd whisper her name over and over and over. "Marianne, Marianne." And she says, "Professor, a girl likes to hear her name." "Now, let's try it again," she says. So they embrace, and the professor says, "Marianne, Marianne, now you whisper something to me." "Yes." "Gee, you smell nice tonight." And she's frustrated. She pushes him down on the bed. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then we come back to Marianne, who is sewing. "Oh, ma
Oh my god, I wish
cherise."
you could play the scene.
Sorry, what's that?
I wish you could play that scene so much.
Yeah, they play like a little bit of French music. And Gilligan is trying to approach her with a very horrible French accent. And he says, "Oh, ma chérie, be surprised to find you at home. Oh, I brought these means for you. And now I kiss your hand, eh?" And he grabs her hand. Unfortunately, sticks the flowers in his face. Then he moves her hand aside and kisses her on the hand. You know what? Now
Yeah.
that I think about it, I don't even think you're allowed to do that anymore, are you?
It depends on which crowd you're pandering to and all the other stuff. But we got some chats here. Jill
Mm-hmm.
says hello. And PvP came back. He says, hi again. Got back from
Welcome
the
back, PvP.
supermarket at 8. So
All
full
right.
now I'm relaxing watching more of stream.
Excellent. Good to see you again, PvP.
And other Greg says, hi Jill. And Scurvy says, welcome back, PvP. And PvP says, thanks, Lemon. Hi. You'll have to rewind the stream there, PvP. We had some good stories in there. Pretty funny.
Yep. It's always funny and never boring. I can assure you of that. And she's Gilligan. Do you feel all right? Obviously, she's noticing that he's acting strange. We come. Let us sit here over here. He says. And of course, she's feeling awkward, not sure what to do. So I can tell you about Le Plume de Métante, which is across the street from the Casbah. And I'll be right back. So Marianne it gets ready to leave and she opens the door. There's a knock at the door. She opens the door and there we have Skipper with his full-on cowboy act. And it's funny. I love this. A starfish for a badge.
Yeah.
And he says, the strangest thing just happened. Gilligan came. And of course, he's not paying any attention. And he says, howdy, ma'am. And of course, his belt falls down and he's trying to keep it up. His holster. I'm sure I'm glad to see you're alone, ma'am. And he's with his heavy cowboy accent. And she says she's trying to explain to him, I was sewing on this dress and Gilligan came. And of course, he's not listening to her. And he says, here, ma'am, I picked these for you down at the corral.
The
He sticks
crowd.
it at the corral, she says, and he sticks them in her face. So now she has two bouquets of flowers. Is that anywhere near the Casbah? She said. And of course, there we have. This is something we were bringing up last night too during the stream about breaking the fourth wall, and that's something that Skipper does often, but successfully so. And that means when they look at the camera, which he often does, and that's where he spots Gilligan standing over there. "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Pardon me," he says. "Howdy, partner." And then there's a knock at the door. Skipper heads over to stand next to Gilligan, and she says, "Oh, come in," when she hears the knock. And it's the professor, and he comes in trying to do his best Cary Grant impersonation. And another bouquet of flowers. "Professor, just a minute, I've got a few more Marianne's." And he's saying, "Marianne, Marianne, Marianne, Marianne." "First, I want you to put these into a vase," he says. But of course, by this point, she's inundated with flowers. "I see you've been down to the corral too," she says.
Yeah, they got
"Corral?"
into they got into the howls of champagne stash down in the stream.
All right, exactly. And she says, "Corral," or Professor says, "Corral, why, my dear, you do have a sense of humor." I'm not going to try to impersonate Cary Grant because I'm not good at that and I'm not going to embarrass myself.
Here,
But
I'll try. He
okay,
goes, wow, why, my dear, you do have a sense of humor.
thank you. You're a braver man than I am. And that's when the professor sees Gilligan and Skipper standing over there. And he said, "My dear, they're not good enough for you." "Not good enough," says Gilligan.
I was like,
"Limey, eh?"
no,
It was
not
just
good enough.
right.
Limey, eh?
Now, I could be wrong, but I think the joke here is limey is a slang by the UK. I don't think it's a French slang. I think it's a slang by people like in Britain.
Well, just a sec.
Trusty Gorilla. He'll look it up for us, guys. Or if Captain Infinity's still, sorry, Peter,
Oh,
is still in the
you're right. It's
chat, he
British.
could tell us.
Yeah, a British person. Term comes from sailors who came to the New World preventing scurvy from sucking limes, termed indigenous to North America.
There we go. Now we know.
Or a second one is a colloquial term used to address or mock British sailors as they commonly sucked on limes to prevent scurvy. When scurvy was realized to be a common killer on long sea voyages, it was discovered soon after that the fruit with a high citrus content would prevent this. The reason they chose limes in particular is that they were cheaper than oranges and much more appealing to taste than lemons.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that. Okay, that makes sense.
Oh,
Ooh, that makes me think of key lime pie. That's so delicious.
that chat's really taken off.
Thank you.
And Euler Greg says they had great laundry service on the island. Yeah, it's called Marianne.
Right, Marianne's cleaning service. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I hope they tipped her well because the tip always counts. The tip
Right.
always counts. Just remember that.
Always tip your waitress.
Well, it depends on the waitress because there's some waitresses I will never tipped.
Well, if they don't deserve it, don't. Right.
Yeah, like the one waitress at the bar there, I took out her tips and she charged me double for my drink. So I said,
"Oh,
yeah,
that's not good."
He's culturally appropriating the French. I'm just kidding. Oh no, chill. You have a right to be offended. He's being offensive here by culturally appropriating them. And Jill says hello, PvP, and PvP says hello, LOL. Skipper as a cowboy, and Scurvy here says PvP is a gourmand. And PvP says the episode sponsored by the American Flower Sellers Association. Why are they doing this to poor Marianne? I don't remember this episode. Because she was having Gilligan send letters to some rich guy in Kansas.
Horace Higginbottom.
Yeah, and he got married, and now they think she's heartbroken.
Right, pretty much her boyfriend. Marianne's been sending love letters to her boyfriend in a bottle. And then they overheard, Marianne did not, but they overheard that her boyfriend got married to another woman, and they don't want to break the news to her. So they're trying to show her attention here, is what's going on. So it's kind of like a ruse.
Yeah. Then PvP says co-sponsored by the Association for Promoting French Culture. How are they promoting French culture? I don't see any white flags. And here's Jill's channel. Oh.
I was just going to say, and I'm sure these days there would be somebody out there complaining because they're trying to use a French accent. But yes, to everybody, please check out Antiderivative Jill's channel. She's charming and extremely intelligent and funny. And she has some wonderful videos, including Star Trek, the original series.
Well, if they find that offensive, then they find me really offensive.
That's why I try not to do the accents, too. I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, Jill says, I see. Thank you. Oh, they're I guess it's your channel, so, but the French are a little bit more thick-skinned than some of these people in the cities.
It does tend to be the people in the, I bet I'll be specific, the coastal cities who vote a certain way.
No, I could one up it. Because all the people that are complaining and making problems are the suburban white women whose husbands are at work all day making six figures, so they stay at home doing nothing, and to make themselves feel better about their lives, they find something to complain about, and they have to advocate to stop it.
Yep, I'm not going to disagree with that. Okay, so they say limier. Well, I've got half a mind to teach you a lesson, says the professor. and Gilligan still says in a horrible accent,
yeah,
it's a jewel you want, eh? And garde.
Garde.
Right, and he pulls out a broom, a hand broom, I guess you could say. I don't advise no, and then of course, Skipper as the sheriff, because remember he thinks he's Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke. steps in and intervenes and says, I don't advise no fighting around here while I'm here. Stay out of this, Sheriff John, says Gilligan. And of course, he hits Skipper in the belly with the broom.
Yeah.
And here we have a little bit of a sparring going on here between Gilligan and the professor. Everybody's gone stark raving mad. And of course, at this point, Marianne is totally confused and does not know what's going on.
Yeah. And I can tell you from experience, getting hit with brooms hurts.
Well, I suppose, especially if you're in the right place with the wrong end.
Yeah, well, I was taking my sister off all day for some reason. I guess just because I was the annoying brother and all that. And then she finally had enough when I purposely shuffled my feet through her dust pile, and she just picked that broom up and just smacked me with it. Broke the broom. It broke the broom.
Jeez, so when you say smack, do you mean like over the head or the stomach? I mean, like what?
No, right across the back.
Ooh, did it hurt? It sounds like it must have.
Well, I never did that again.
See, that'll teach you. Don't mess with your sister, right?
Yeah. Well, our parents never really broke up the fights until there started to be blood and all that. Or my mom would yell, "Hey, you guys knocked it off and take that outside right now and let us start selling tickets to the neighbors."
There you go. I would be like, okay, Mom, as long as we get 50% of the take. Here's where Marianne burst into the house saying, oh, I'm going to go back here. Mr. Howell, you've got to help. You've got to help. And I like how they use this term. This is very creative because she doesn't want to use. And I thought this was smart for the day, too, because these days, now in our day and time, modern, you've got to be careful about how you use the word crazy, especially on TV and in the movies, because if you say that, somebody's going to be offended because they're going to say they're making fun of crazy people or people with mental illnesses and so on and so forth. But instead of that, what Marianne says is, you've got to help me. And she's to Mr. Howell, and she explains about the professor, Skipper, and Gilligan, that they've gone island happy. And I thought that was an interesting way of putting it. Island happy. And of course, he's trying to calm her down. Let's discuss this calmly, my dear. And then she's trying to get all their attention, saying, hurry, help, I need help. What's wrong with you, Marianne? She said, well, I was sewing on a dress, and Gilligan came in, and he thought he was Charles Boyer. Then the skipper came in, and he thought he was Matt Dillon. And Professor came in, sorry, we missed the text, but Professor came in, and he thought he was Cary Grant. And then Ginger says, and he had that's right. And then Marianne says he had a fight with Cary Grant. And Gilligan, Ginger says, but it wasn't a dream, Ginger. And of course, I don't want to butcher this, but Ginger says it sounds like a dream to have all them together fighting over her, pretty much. I hate when this skips things like that. It kind of ruins the joke. That's why I encourage everybody, like I said earlier, please watch this. It's a very funny episode. And I want you to be able to appreciate the writing for what it was. And now Mr. Howell slyly, subtly, is trying to give her the hint and say, they're just trying to make an impression on you, darling.
Yeah. Here, we got a few chats pop up
Thank
here.
You, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, PvP says the sheriff has a great badge. Yep, the old reliable starfish there.
All right.
And then PvP says right place, wrong end. Ouch.
All right.
And Scurvy here says, is there a right end for that? I don't think so. I don't
want to get hit with if it's a broom, I want to get hit with a soft end if I'm going to be hit at all, obviously.
Yeah.
The straw end, I guess you could say.
And Jill says a little known fact that Gorilla and his sister had Mexican wrestling masks for their neighborhood performances. They indeed sold tickets and earned a lot of money. That could be a Gilligan episode.
Ding, ding, ding.
Well, if I made a lot of money, this would be the house I'd be living in.
Oh, yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah, PvP says, personally, if that place is where I think it is, it's a very wrong place.
Oh, Well, good
that
thing we had
PvP
to
says
explain.
to get hit. And Skirp says
Right.
I can see Gorilla putting on a mask of wrestling. And PvP says the Gorilla versus Sister cage matches because a neighborhood legend.
That's right. And then Marianne's trying to get their attention, and she's frustrated because they're not taking it seriously. No telling what they might do to each other, she says. And of course, it looks like the slide looks skewed because we're right in the middle of an edit, and that happens. And now Marianne is going back to the hut, and she can overhear the men talking on the inside. Skipper says,
Yeah,
"How long do we have to keep up this masquerade?"
yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier here when you overhear half the conversation, and that where she's thinking that they're talking about the poisonous mushrooms, and they're talking about the boyfriend here, and then
Exactly.
everything eventually here everything that they. Oh, we'll wait till we get to it.
Okay, so she hears, uh, like Gorilla says, just part of the conversation, one half of it. So a half of or one side, I guess you could say, not both sides. And it's how long do you think? And he said, I give her about a week. They're estimating how long she would be grieving once she found out about the boyfriend, but she doesn't understand that. And that's what Skipper says. I wish there was an easier way to tell her. How long did it take her to get over it? Well, Gilligan says he knew his. I think he says his sister and her.
Yeah,
And
sister, she never recovered.
right, he says he had a sister that happened to her. And Professor says, how long did it take for her to get over it? And he says she never recovered. And Skipper says, oh, poor Marianne. And Marianne, now remember this, Marianne does not hear the whole story. So this is her reaction. She's very worried. Oh, she says. So she assumes they were talking about the mushrooms from the mushroom soup she was cooking earlier. And she says, oh, they were poisonous. Oh, no wonder they're being so nice to me, she says. They want to tell me I'm going to die. Now, she doesn't say die, but she said they don't want to tell me I'm going to die, she says. And we cut to the next scene with the same old exterior hut on the outside. And we have Marianne saying, listening to the radio, once again listening to her soap opera. Young Dr. Young. On the advice of his father, the doctor, Eileen speaks. Eileen's voice, Doctor, please don't spare me. How much longer do I have? And young Dr. Young says, a week, perhaps, maybe less. I will not burden others with my problems, she says. And he says, no, that is wrong, very wrong. You must seek out your friends. Tell them that tell them that I know. Yes, and above all, be brave, he says. Oh, doctor, I will be brave, she says. And Marianne turns off the radio and says, and I'll be as brave as you, Eileen Frobisher. And here we have Gilligan and Skipper, I don't know why, trying to do arm wrestling like Gilligan really has a chance. And they're counting 28, 29, and I'll play this. So that's about how good Gilligan is at arm wrestling, especially against the Skipper. 30, 31, 32. Oh, Gilligan, you're not even trying. And here comes Marianne, all cheerful. Hi, Marianne. And she says, I came over to thank you for last night. Well, I know why you were trying to cheer me up, she says. I wanted to tell you I appreciate it. And they're, of course, they're confused. And she says, oh, they told you? And she says, oh, no, nobody told me. And Skipper says, well, that's wonderful, Marianne.
Yeah, she said
See,
that they overheard. She overheard him in the hut.
right. And Skipper's thinking that he doesn't know that she's confused. So he says, that's wonderful. He's glad that she's already had the news broken to her. And he says, you're quite a girl for taking it so calmly. And she says, I've decided to be brave. Good girl. You might just as well make the best of it, says the skipper. Huh? And Gilligan says, it'll all be over in a little while, of course. They'll be real happy she's taking it like a man, he says, or considering she's a girl. And of course, that makes her upset when she hears this. But now it sounds even more terminal than it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, of course, Skipper has that look on his face. And Mr. and Mrs. Howell, wait till you hear the good news. So we have Gilligan and Marianne rushing in. Marianne knows, and she's calm as anything. Thurston, did you hear that? Says Mrs. Howell. Yes, Marianne, you have our sympathy, says Mr. Howell. What? Well, it's not the end of the world, says Mrs. Howell. Sure, this kind of thing happens every day, says Gilligan. Yes, dear, we cry a little and then we forget, says Mrs. Howell. I've
And
got a good idea. Go
and
ahead.
well, Mr. Howell said, "Not much of a loss, if you ask me." Now this is
Yeah,
this
exactly. That was a funny line, right, when he said that.
yeah.
Thank you for
Well,
remembering that.
well, this part made me laugh so hard, and I have better way to say this. They all think they're being kind and and reassuring, trying to cheer her up. But in her mind, she's just thinking they're being a bunch of jackasses.
Or
She's
they're
the
being,
way they're
right.
talking. I don't know
Sure.
how better way to put it.
Well, she thinks they're being inconsiderate.
Oh, okay, I guess there's that, but
Right. Or not caring. But of course, remember, there's still the misunderstanding going on. So she's not quite clear on what's really going on. So Mrs. Howell says, I've got a good idea. Why don't we give a party to celebrate? How can how can you all be so callous at a time like this? Says Marianne. How can you think of giving me a party at a time like this? And then she starts crying and runs out the door. And Mrs. Howell says, whatever's the matter? And Mr. Howell, we kind of missed this from the frames a few seconds ago. But when they mentioned having the party, Mr. Howell said he'll bring out his bottle of champagne from the 1932, and they'll celebrate that he's been saving the bottle. And then Marianne runs out the door, and he says, well, I'll admit 1932 was a bad year. So that's the reason for that joke. That's what, like I said, guys, I hate having to show things out of sequence or skipping frames because it misses a lot of the humor. But they get so hysterical about it, says Mrs. Howell. So she's confused why Marianne's acting the way she is. She probably cries over a bad crepe Suzette, says Mr. Howell. Later that
what's a
evening,
bad crepe? What's a bad crepe? Is that?
it's a breakfast. It's like a almost like a sweet pancake with fruit on it. And now we have Miss Marianne in bed asleep at night, and she's hearing this, and this is a voiceover in her head. She's remembering what they said outside the window. I'll give her a week, maybe less. And it's Skipper's voice. It would break my heart to have to tell her. She never recovered. And then it repeats, never recovered, never recovered. And then here's where we get our first dream sequence, but instead of being Gilligan or the Skipper dreaming, we get Marianne having a dream.
Yeah, it's only her dream.
It's only her to write. And she still hears the voices. She's so sweet and innocent. You can't be sure about mushrooms. They might be poisonous. She's so sweet and innocent. And we get the usual blurring effect and the crescendo sound. And she wakes up and she's in she doesn't wake up, but she's in the hospital in the dream, waking up, that is. And starts looking around, says, where am I? And then she grabs for the little phone or intercom next to her bed, pushes the button and says, nurse, nurse. And here, of course, we have Mrs. Howell coming in as the nurse. And this is hilarious, too, because Mrs. Howell is supposed to be the nurse. And she said, did you ring, my dear? But, of course, me and Mrs. Howell, she's still got to have all her jewelry on and makeup, which a nurse would never do. And Marianne says, what am I doing in the hospital? What's wrong with me?
All right,
I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed. Go for it, Gorilla.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Well, PvP said became I meant, and then he's laughing at the story there. Peter here is smiling. And welcome, Chris Longfellow. Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
Chris. Good to see you, Chris.
He said, Sherry, thanks so much. I'm a girl. It's okay. Porn star name?
Yes.
Guess that went over my head. All right.
Wait. Hold on, Gorilla. I don't want to offend anybody. Let me get my thing over here. And can you show that again?
Yes.
Should I think so much of? Yeah, Chris is a girl. That's what Chris is saying. All right, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. No, that's all
Because
of them.
sometimes people don't know if it's a he or she, and they might accidentally address them with the wrong pronoun, and they'll say he because Chris is obviously can be used either way. But yeah, Chris is a girl. So
Okay,
I want to
so
clarify. I want to
I
clarify that for
humbly
everybody.
apologize for that.
Right, and it's not intentional, Chris.
Yeah. And Peter says that's what she said.
Of course. Thank you, Peter, for that comment. I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to tell a patient, says the nurse, with a fatal disease what's wrong with them.
And welcome the lovely Sherry. Welcome.
Hello, Sherry. Good to see you. Glad you could
Yeah,
join us. Long time no see.
yeah, she says hello. And Peter here said poor Mar- Maringue is getting misgendered.
Meringue.
Meringue, okay. Anthony says hi to the lovely Sherry. Scurvy here says, hey, Sherry. And Sherry says hi to Jill. All right, we're all caught up.
Thank you. And the nurse, aka Mrs. Howe, wherever did you get that idea? And so, of course, it's missing jokes because we're having to skip frames. And she says, all the nurses call me Miss Blabbermouth. And there's a knock at the door, and the nurse says, come in. And I love this, Mr. Howell playing the doctor. Way over the top, but it's funny. Good morning, doctor, as he comes in. You're always a million laughs, doctor. Of course, he immediately comes in telling jokes. Thank you. And who do we have here? I'm Marianne. Who are you? Well, I'm kindly Dr. Zorba Gillespie. She's an inquisitive little creature, isn't she? Says the nurse. Well, Marianne Frobisher. Now, you notice how they call her Frobisher, which was the name. I'm trying to think. Frobisher, where did they get that from? Because Marianne's last name was Summers in the series. So they must have mentioned, but the boyfriend's name was Higginbottom.
It might
So
have
I'm
been
not
from
really sure where they
old Dr. Young. It's probably from the old
That's
Dr.
right.
Young.
That's right. That was it. Right. That was the name of the lady on this soap opera. That's it. Thank you so much, Gorilla.
Yeah.
And she says, well, you must be the one they call Miss Blabbermouth, says the doctor. Well, this doesn't look too bad, he says. Let's see if I want to try to see if I can catch this so we don't ruin the joke. And he's looking at the chart. So it looks like she's doing wonderful. It looks like she started out low and went up high. And then the nurse turns the chart. Let me catch that. And no, that's the actual results. So she started out high and went low. Oh, yes, says the doctor. And whistles. Oh. Well, there's nothing to worry about, my dear. And he says this room will be available this afternoon. So we charge her for the full day. Of course, making it sound like she's not going to live throughout the day. Please, I have to see old Dr. Young, she says. But he's on another case. He can't be bothered. Bothered? But I'm going to die, she says. Well, that's exactly the sort of thing that bothers him, says the doctor. Oh, nurse, let me see young Dr. Young. My dear, this is a hospital. We're here to take care of sick people. And besides, we're preparing a TV series. Oh, please, I've got to see somebody, says Marianne. Yes, and so you shall, my dear, you shall indeed. You're flying in. And then I'm trying to remember this verbatim because we're missing slides.
Yeah.
But the doctor said we're flying in 3 highly skilled professional And we are flying him in at no expense to us, but a bundle to you, which I thought was a great line.
Yeah.
Go
Can
ahead,
we just
Gorilla.
take a minute to admire Mr. Howell's hair in this?
I know, right? I love it because everybody's like over the top, almost like a mad doctor.
Yeah, everything's over the top. Everything.
Yep. And this is like we were talking about earlier. This is why the dream slash nightmare sequences were so fun, and why the actors enjoyed them. They were able to play these weird, strange characters, and it gave them a little more range, which I really like. It gave them variety. You're flying at no expense to us, but a bundle to you, he says. Three of the most important surgeons in the world. I'll send them the moment they arrive, doctor. Let's see if we can guess who those three surgeons might be. So the nurse says, yeah, we'll send them in the moment they arrive, doctor. I, Miss Frobisher, shall make other arrangements, he says, as he leaves. Next of kin, and who rides with the family? God, and she's like, oh no. And here we have our first doctor. Oh, so nice to see you, doctor. And he pulls down the mask. Please, I do not have time for chit chat, doctor. So we have Gilligan still doing his bad French accent. I have hope I have not arrived too late, eh? Says the doctor. And of course, Mr. Howell, the doctor, says, no, the services won't be until tomorrow. And that look on his face. Miss Frobisher, neither the wind nor the. This is Gilligan's French doctor speaking. Miss Frobisher, neither the wind nor the rain nor the dark night could keep me from your side. And she says, isn't that what the mailmen say? And he says, well, I graduated from a correspondence school. Oh, doctor, you've got to tell me the truth, please. And he says, well, and he's listening for a pulse, and he doesn't hear anything in her wrist. Looks like she has a mole on her wrist. I never noticed that before.
I can't see here. Just a sec. I don't see them all.
Yeah, right below Gilligan's fingers. Or
Looks like
birthmark.
a bruise. It looks like a bruise.
Possibly. If it was a bruise, I think they would cover it up with makeup. So I'm guessing it's a mole or a birthmark. But he's listening to her pulse and he doesn't hear anything. Well, actually, I need to correct myself. It's not like you're going to hear a pulse, but he holds, for comedic purposes, he's checking her fingers or her wrist for a pulse, but at the same time, lifts her hand up so he can listen. Like that's really going to help find her pulse, which it doesn't. So it's once again comedy and exaggeration.
Yeah.
So he's checking for her pulse. He doesn't feel anything, and he keeps inching up her arm higher and higher, listening for a pulse.
Yeah.
And out of frustration, she finally yanks her arm back. Go ahead, Gorilla.
All right, catch up here on chat. We got
Thank
a
you,
few more.
sir.
Lois Sherry says, "Hey, Scurvy, and here's Euler Greg's channel for spoiler-free reviews." And Chris could be the name of male or female. Yeah, PvP. I got a aunt there named Christine and a cousin named Christopher. So, they both go by Chris. So,
Yes.
and Peter says, "No shit, Sherlock." Oh, all right. And PvP says, "Nice hair the doctor has." And Peter says, "Looks like he stuck his finger in a socket." Hey, is
Right.
this? And Peter here says, "Hey, is this a dream sequence or something?" Yes, it is. Mary Ann's having a dream there that she's dying there. And
Yes.
Peter says,
From mushroom poisoning, right? She thinks she has mushroom poisoning.
"Yeah." And Peter says, "Looks like he stuck his finger in a socket." And Drill says, "Yes, it's a dream, Captain, not Captain." And PvP says, "Hair designed by Rotwang Hair Salon."
Rotwing, you know, he's the from Nosferatu when we covered that. He's the guy that basically goes crazy. He's in the insane asylum with his hair sticking out. No, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Rotwing from Metropolis. The mad scientist from Metropolis that we covered last week. That's right.
Okay. All right.
Is that
Wait. I think we got. Oh shoot, they pop it up here. And Peter says, "Very good, thanks, Jill. As long as we know." And Susan says, "Captain Finity, hello." Jill, hello. And Jill says, "We do. It's Marianne. She thinks she's going to die from bad mushrooms."
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's bad edible mushrooms, not a bad mushroom trip. There's a difference.
Right. Right.
PvP
She's
says,
definitely not tripping.
yeah. Well, she is, but not like
Not in
the
that way,
good,
right?
not the good trip. PvP says
Yes.
hello, or Suzanne says hello to PvP, and Jill says hello to Suzanne. And here's some damn gorilla. He has shorts and watch parties and reviews.
But check out Gorilla's Random Thoughts channel, everybody. It's fantastic and funny.
Yeah, PvP says Metropolis, yes. And PvP says hi, Suzanne. And Peter says, Marianne tripping on mushrooms. Too much. And
All
Peter says, Suzanne. Alrighty. We're all caught
right.
up.
So Dr. Gilligan, I'm just going to call him Dr. Gilligan because they don't really elaborate on what his French name is trying to listen to the pulse, and he goes all the way up her arm, and he still can't hear anything. Out of frustration, she pulls her arm back. And he says, "Oh, well." And he tries to cover her up, and then she pulls down the covers. "Please, when I make a diagnosis, it's final," he says. And he pulls the cover up again over her face, and she pulls him down again. And it kind of goes back and forth here like that.
Oh,
So
I
she's
love this.
frustrated because she's not ready to die yet.
No, she's a
Hey,
stubborn one.
there you go. Hey, something is wrong, he says. There's a knock at the door, and now we have our second doctor appearing. "Put your hands down, partner." And I'm going to say Dr. Skipper, since we don't really, our doctor, because I don't know if it's Matt Dillon, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to say Dr. Skipper. So we have Dr. Skipper into the room, and of course, he has that same badge made out of a starfish, which I really enjoy. "Oh, it's old Doc Dillon, specialist from the West. Where's the sick Billy?" "Oh, well, sorry, ma'am. Got here as soon as I could," he says. And then we hear a horse whinny, and she says that. And she says, "Is there a horse?" And he says, "Well, that's what slowed me down a little." And he says, "You got a
Yeah.
ticket for attracting flies on the freeway." Notice how now the hat fits, and it didn't when they were in the hut.
So he must have gotten a different hat.
I guess, or he decided to wear it differently because it was kind of he was wearing it differently in the hut. And Dr. Gilligan says, "This doctor is very sick, girl." No, this doctor is a very sick girl. And Dr. Skipper says, "Well, I'll have this case diagnosed in no time. Let me see what it says here on the last roundup." And he looks at her chart. "Well, now." And of course, he's not looking or paying attention, so he grabs the bedpost. And it's funny because that's the exact same design of the bed I have right now. So this must be an old sucker. So he grabs the bedpost and says, "Well, we got a broken fetlock." I'm not sure if that's a real thing. It's probably fictitious, but I could be
Uh,
wrong. But whatever a
give me a
fetlock
second.
is,
Give me 1 second. Fetlock, the joint of a horse's or other quadruped's leg between the cannon bone and the pastern.
oh, very cool. Thank you. See, guys, in the chat, you come here and you learn something new every day. So you come to the right place.
Oh, here, just a second. I share my screen.
Please.
All right, share screen. So right here, you got the can. Can you see my mouse?
I'm
So
I'm enlarged. I'm large in the screen. Go for it. Yes.
okay, so right here is basically the knee. Here's the cannon. And so basically, it's right where your ankle would be. The
Okay.
be right there in the back there. It's basically that little spot at the back of your ankle, that the ankle there. That's kind of like cartilage a little bit. That's
Uh huh.
flexible. That helps your ankle move. That's pretty much what it is on a horse.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
All right, and back to our featured program. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, Jim. Good to see you. Glad you could join us. I hope you're doing well tonight.
Well, this is a good chance to catch up on the chat. Peter
Thank
says,
you.
"Pops, now I'm waiting for the chestburster alien."
I know, right?
This is starting to remind me of Alien.
I know. We were
Skipper,
just we were just talking about Alien last night.
yeah, Skipper is obviously from Dallas,
Skipper's
or
obviously
is
from
obviously
Dallas.
Dallas. Uh, yeah, is that his girlfriend Debbie in there too?
Oh.
Jill says, "I don't know. I don't see John C anywhere."
Hold on.
PvP says
Wait. Go back to that one. Let me enlarge so I can see that.
something about a cat.
Jonesy.
Oh,
Oh, she's
Jonesy.
talking about. I think she's talking about the cat from Alien.
Oh, okay, okay.
Right.
And
Okay.
PvP says, yes, fetlock is often applied to horses.
Gotcha.
The
Thank you.
and Peter says the face hugger is on his smock.
Oh,
Okay,
he's talking about the starfish. He's saying that's the face hugger that the skipper's got on his smock.
okay. The Jim says hello, and Jill says hi to Jim. Jim says hail Jill, and PvP says hi Jim.
Very cool. I'm glad everybody's saying hello to each other. And this is where Marianne tells Dr. Skipper, Doctor, that's the bedpost. And of course, Skipper, Dr. Gilligan says she thinks she knows everything.
Yeah.
And of course, there's another knock on the door. I wonder who this could be. And we have Dr. Professor, which is kind of a strange term, but yes, we have the professor as the third doctor, once again doing his best, or worst, I say, Cary Grant impression.
Yeah.
Dear, 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 you look awful.
Well,
He's looking at Dr. Gilligan. And he says, oh, no, he ain't the patient. And then, of course, he says, well, you look even worse. And Marianne said, no, I'm the patient. Oh, well, stick out your tongue. Oh, yes, well, I think we're going to have to operate, he says. Well, you've got a severe case. She says, Doctor, what is it? And he says, well, you've got a severe case of rheumatoid gloomus.
oh,
That is what you have, all right. And of course, those two are confused because they don't know what that means.
yeah.
And he says, it's a medical term, my dear. Oh, but I'm the one who's got it. Gloomus is from the Eskimo word igloo, meaning mush. And he says, or in the layman's tongue, room.
Oh yeah, because he's talking about something about a hotel thing. I can't
Yes.
remember the exact phrase.
Right. Being the professor, of course, even though this is a dream sequence, he's using terminology which he has to explain to them. So just like in true character of the professor, he has to explain what the word means. So he says, therefore, rumus iglumus means mushroom. And she says, mushroom? Mushroom! Then she realizes that is the only way to catch rumus iglumus. Well, let's get on with the operation, says Dr. Uh, Skipper. And Dr. Gilligan, I will ring for the operating nurse. And the ringer, they're looking for the ringer. And here comes the nurse. Another nurse, I should say. And
Ooh,
I think
Nurse Jane. Oh,
I was just gonna say she looks so hot in this. I know, very beautiful.
uh, time for some role play. I tell you what.
And of course, she has a sign, a badge saying graduate. So we're assuming she just graduated from medical school. Oh, is this kind of nurse? Is my kind of nurse? Says Dr. Gilligan. Now, see here, doctor, she says. Or actually says Dr. Professor. Oh, yes, we do. So they immediately start vying for attention over the nurse. We got to prepare for an operation, of course, says Dr. Skipper. Now, just a minute, doctor. We've got to scrub up, she says. Now, nurse, where do we go to scrub up? So she steps over to the other side of the room and she moves the curtain out of the way. And we have the sinks. Now,
Yeah.
but I don't think, I hate let me see if I can go back here.
All right.
It's terrible.
And,
We missed the jokes. Go
and
ahead.
welcome, Sean. Welcome. Here. Oh, here. I'll catch up a chat while you're getting to there. You want to there. Here's the behind the scenes video. Cool. I think I did check that out. It was pretty cool. Uh,
Absolutely.
Jim says, "Hail PvP," and PvP says three doctors, and they haven't a clue between them. Sounds about right.
Exactly.
Milk you for more money. Oh, and here is LDG's backstage. If you ever need IT help or need a place to hang out, always a lot of
Yes.
fun.
Yes, I highly recommend LGG's channel. Check it out, everybody.
Yeah, and Scurvy says, "Hi, Jim." Jim says, "Hail, Scurvy." And Sean says, "Hey, everybody. Been a groggy night for me, but just checking in."
Well, sorry to hear that. I hope you get some rest.
Yeah, same here.
But
And Jill said,
I'm glad you took time out of the day to come and join us.
"Hello, Sean. Good to see you." PvP says, "Hi, Sean." And Sean says, "Hi, Jill." PvP greetings and Scurvy, hello. All right, let's get this finished up here. Let's get.
All right, thank you. I know it's late for you. It's what is it, midnight? My goodness, I don't know. I didn't know we were running so long. I
Well,
apologize.
oh, these were two good episodes that had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, you're right. I didn't, but this is like incredibly long. I really apologize. So we are going to try to get through this as quick as possible. Everybody, poor gorilla has to get up early in the morning for work.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll make it, says the skipper. So now they all rush to wash and scrub up, of course, because they're all anxious because of, let's say, Nurse Ginger. Oh, isn't anybody going to pay any attention to me, says Marianne. I'm
Nope.
the one who's sick. And Nurse Ginger comes over and oh, I'm going to try to catch this. Nurse Ginger comes over and shows the operation tools, and they look like this. So this is a good joke, too.
My God, what is this? The Dark Ages?
Right. Oh, please, she says. I'll help you, honey. She hears the voice. I'll help you, honey. And the nurse is comforting her. Oh, get old Dr. Young or young Dr. Young. I'm too young to die. Oh, please help me. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, says the nurse. Wake up, honey. And she wakes up, and it's Ginger trying to comfort her, of course. And this is kind of like a hint, a throwback to The Wizard of Oz. And she wakes up. Now, remember, Marianne's character was based on Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, by the way. Small bit of trivia. So wake up. And she wakes up, where am I? Well, and she said, a pretty bad one from the way you were yelling. She said she was having a dream. And then that's when Ginger says, well, a pretty bad one from the way you were yelling. Oh, it wasn't a dream, Ginger. I ate some poisoned mushrooms. And Professor says, Marianne, those mushrooms weren't poisonous. Well, why were the three of you so nice to me? She said. Well, to make you forget about Horace Higginbottom, says Gilligan. Horace? What's he got to do with it? And Gilligan says, well, he got married. And Marianne says, oh, the poor girl.
No.
Oh, Ginger. Go ahead.
I thought she's like, no, she didn't. That wasn't her line. I don't think, was it? Because she's like,
yeah, Marianne says, oh, poor girl.
Now I remember.
Right. Yeah, Marianne says, oh, poor girl. And they're confused. And they said, what do you mean, poor girl? And she says, oh, Ginger, Horace is a real creep. And then Gilligan said, well, how come all those letters, all the ones I mailed? Well, he means put in the bottle. And she says, oh, I'm sorry about that, Gilligan. I guess I acted sort of foolish. She says, because Ginger has so many boyfriends, is what she says. And then there's Mrs. Howell and Mr. Howell. And I just wanted somebody to think I had someone. So I invented a romance. Well, certainly you didn't have to scare us half to death. Well, I guess you think I'm pretty silly, huh? She says. Silly? Well, just because you write a letter and address it to a guy you hardly know and stuff it in a bottle and throw it in the ocean. Who would call that silly, huh? And we cut to later on. We have Skipper and Gilligan working outside the hut, and it looks like Skipper's got a fire going on there, and he's cooking. And here comes Marianne, all nice and cheerful, and she asks, "What is that they're cooking?" And Skipper makes a joke with her that it's mushroom soup. What? And he says, no, I guess it'll be, he tells her I was just joking. I guess it'll be a long time before you have mushroom soup again. And she says, boy, you can say that again. You don't have to worry about mushrooms anymore, says Gilligan. And he says, I have a book on mushrooms. And they say, you do? And he says, yes. He said, how to tell a mushroom from a toadstool by the late Dr. Mort on Keep Stoned. Dr. Morton Keep Stoned, kept stoned,
Capstone.
which is, I like the way they have these silly names. Thank you. And they said, late, and he takes a second look, and we have our closing scene.
Now, would they
That's
have
it.
actually put that on there? The late
No, no, that was
book.
just a joke.
All right, hey Suzanne, you have a good night there. There. Hope you
Good night,
sleep well.
Suzanne. Take care, Suzanne, and we'll continue spreading the word, Suzanne. Good luck. All right, so we have our closing. All right, and I'll wrap this up. Gilly, Gorilla, why don't you tell us which episode did you like the best, and tell us about your channel,
Well,
please.
the first one there, I've seen like I don't know, like at least 20 sometimes. That's like the most played episode on TV there. But the second one is the type of story I love. If it's not overdone, like it become like a weekly thing, like
Right.
some show. Please Company. But no, I've actually never seen Three's Company. But anyhow, I just love that show where everything's if you're gonna make it unbelievable, just go over the top and out with it like they did and all that. Then
Absolutely, yes.
you get the dream sequence and they still act in character. They're just being outrageous. It's pretty good. It just reminds me of the Blues Brothers where they took everything and hundredfolded it
Right.
like Blues Brothers there. But
Very cool.
yeah, my channel there, a bunch of shorts. I'm gonna try to start. I've been doing quite a few more shorts there. I noticed that the craft sodas ones don't get too many views, so I might switch to craft beer. I got a bunch of craft beer ones I'm gonna do here pretty
Oh,
soon because
nice,
my
nice.
my dad was having like a bucket list thing, and he dropped me off a bunch of beers. He goes, huh. So I'm guessing they're the ones he doesn't like, and they're just sitting
Oh,
there. So like I got like a pretzel beer in there. I might do here
that's
on
interesting. I never heard of that before. Pretzel beer, interesting. It sounds salty.
so maybe the blueberry one's not too good. The blueberry muffin one was not too bad, but needed
That
more
sounds
blueberry.
yummy.
It needed more blueberry flavor. It's like a very faint hint of blueberries in it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But anyhow, on Wednesday nights, why the stream's so late is I got Justified Watch Party. We're actually just getting the end of season one. It's a really good show. There, we were thoroughly entertained tonight, especially with two good episodes.
Oh,
Uh,
very cool.
on Fridays there we had Walton's reviews. Saturday, I was hoping to have cringe stock there, but PvP, I have to schedule time with PvP here because we're gonna sit there, get drunk, and mock sausage party.
Right, so it's still possible you're going to do it. You're just getting the time set.
Yeah, because Jill inconveniently had to set her Voyager watch
What
parties, and
watch
probably
party?
could do it for a year at the same time. I wanted to do a random stream.
Okay.
I'm kidding, Jill. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But then also Babylon 5 Saturday nights, and then this Sunday for our last songs made into movies is Beer for My Horses with Toby
Good for
Keith.
my horses. Gotcha.
I like Toby Keith's movies, so it ought to be pretty good. I haven't seen it.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, Gorilla. I appreciate it. And
Yes.
I will have to say, if I had to choose between the two, and this will give us a variety as well, I think I like the first one. Although I like both of them. I enjoyed definitely both of them, but I definitely liked the first one. It was nice to get a couple cameos from, like I said, the lady from War of the Worlds and the lady from Gilligan's Island. But not to diminish the second episode. Like I said, I enjoyed them both, and I found them very funny. It was very very nice. Um, Sometimes our week episodes, but I think if we lucked out today. I think we got two good ones back to back, which was great. That's good to see for a change. So I highly recommend it, everybody. If you have not seen them, please watch them. If you have not seen them in a long time, please watch them again and reacquaint yourself. I think you'll be glad you did. And next week, we'll be doing our classic Lost in Space review on Monday evening, day, depending on where you're at. We'll be picking up, we're still on season one of Lost in Space. And I will be putting out the poll within the next day or so of what movie we'll be covering and let you guys vote for our Tuesday horror slash sci-fi stream, and we'll choose which one of those is, that everybody wants to see. And then we'll be back next Wednesday with another dual episodes of Gilligan's Island.
Yeah. Well, here, there's a few chats here I want to address here, but let's get through them
Go
all.
for it. Thank you. A reminder, everybody, please vote in the Please vote in the poll. If you have not done so, let us know which of these episodes you enjoyed the most. And go ahead, Gorilla.
All right, here is Nemesis of Ian's channel. He does some gaming and shows some glitches on some of the old ones. And Scurvy's waving at Sean. And apparently Jim's out on the East Coast there. It's 118 for him or 115 and T-Storms for him. Peter says this is certainly way better than the usual suspects. And
Right.
good night, the phone is done. And Sean says good night, Susan. PvP says the doctor kept stone on mushrooms.
Right. That's why I got stuck on the word stone kept.
Yeah. And Peter says maybe Marianne is actually on a holodeck on a space cruiser on a 5-year mission.
That is always a possibility.
And Sean said, PvP, that's what I thought. And Jill says goodnight to Susan. Now, PvP says, how long is Sausage Party? And no, that's not a joke. Oh, yes, it is PvP. You purposely made that a naughty joke. There, but it's like an hour and a half. And no, Jill, we can schedule it for a whole different time there. PvP would much rather watch Voyager. We could drink, and maybe we could schedule it on Sunday or something at 3:30 or something. And PvP says that's cool, Jill. No worries. I just have not figured out my weekend yet. And here's PvP's channel for all your rock and roll needs. And Jill says,
I think you're out of sequence.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, because you were just showing something by and Jill posted the link. Sorry, got it. I stand corrected. Thank you. Go ahead.
Stream. And Jill here says, of course, PvP. Sometimes it's fun to change it up. So
and just in time, look at that. Of course, just like before, Stream Elements promotes PvP's channel at the same time.
Yeah, the PvP says so. Until I figure it out by Friday night, I can't commit.
Commit.
Yeah, PvP, you'd much rather watch Voyager. I'll tell you that right now. Here's Sean's Carter channel for fantastic model work, and I still got to figure out my Stream Elements there to get that programmed in.
Yeah, definitely, everybody check out Sean's channel.
PvP or Peter says PvP. Watch Valerian, and PvP says Sunday at 3:30 might work. Alrighty. We'll think.
Very cool.
All right, that's all the chats there.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll, and then I'm going to show the results so we can share it. And that way we can all, let's see here. There we go. Bear with me, guys. It'll just take a moment. And there we go. So, which episode did you enjoy most? We got 9 votes, and it looks like You've Been Disconnected got 86% of the votes, and The Postman Cometh got 33% of the votes. Very cool. All right. Looks like I chose the most popular one tonight.
So that's a good thing. I see how y'all are. You're all against me.
That's why we all have different opinions. I like that it balances out. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody in the chat and for spending time with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you had a good time. I hope you can come back and check out our streams next week, like I said, but also check out Gorilla's Random Thoughts. He's going to have more streams this week. And Gorilla, thank you for being such a fantastic co-host tonight and helping me out with the chat.
Yeah, no problem.
And I know it's late, like I said, everybody. So make sure you get a good night's sleep. Try to, and I mean a good night's sleep, so that way you're not drowsy and dragging and have to worry about tomorrow. And try to
Uh,
drive
I'll
safely.
be napping as I'm ripping her eggs apart for the first 2 hours tomorrow.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. I appreciate it, you all, and take care.
night, everybody. Remember to be a gorilla.
Absolutely.